start slowly opening the stage. Welcome to Flutter 17th meetup. I'm really glad that we can see you all in person, finally, on an offline event, after so many editions being held only online. If we can, to just grab the last drink, find your seat, and we'll be starting.
Okay, so once again, hello everyone and welcome. We are very glad to see such a huge group of people in person finally after such a long time, as Łukasz said, and also huge welcome to everyone watching us live on the live stream. We're very glad to have you here with us, at least remotely, again after a few months.
Initially, slow promotion. So who are we? We are Flutter Warsaw, on the stage since a couple of years. So you may find, since you already find your way towards the event, so I believe you are following us on Twitter and subscribing us on YouTube. If not, please do so, because the talks from this event will be published within a few weeks, probably somewhere in the middle of July. So if you want to stay updated with the news, if you want to have an access to the talks online, so please subscribe, please follow us on Twitter so that you can have updates about that. Today we are also having this hybrid version of an event with our great crowd gathered here in Warsaw. We're really glad to see you here, because the last offline edition took place 30 months ago, directly before Flutter Europe conference as a before party, and since then we're experiencing only lockdowns, so we went online with our online editions. Right now we will have the hybrid version, we will use also this opportunity to have some special side events like a pizza and beer after main talks. So that's the thing that perhaps our streamers wouldn't actually appreciate, but all of you have gathered here, feel invited to the networking party after the main event, after those sessions.
So again, thank you all for being with us. The last time this meetup was held only remotely, unfortunately, was in December, and back then we had only 1,400 people, which is still a lot. But actually, we've grown a lot also since December. Now we have over 1,800 members on Meetup. So really, thank you so much for wanting to be a part of our community, and so that we can grow together in our Flutter skills. And it's really flattering to us that you really want to grow with Flutter. Pun was definitely intended, by the way. And you are really important part of this group, actually the most important, because without you, these meetups wouldn't take place, of course. So if you have any feedback for us, if you are here personally, reach out to us in person right now while you can. And also afterwards, or if you are on the stream, you can reach us on Twitter at Flutter Warsaw, or you can reach us individually on Twitter, or even through other channels available like Discord and so on.
Right, even if you want to be on a stage like our heroes today, and so don't hesitate and fill in the call for paper. One more thing, as Matej told already about the December event. In December we are showing you this slide, and this slide was to announce a cooperation that was meant to deliver the huge mobile banking application, and we are glad that we can finally announce that this application has been indeed accomplished and delivered. So what was pre-announced back then in December will now go live, and you will hear the learnings that we pre-announced during our last meetup.
Also, huge thank you to our sponsors, media partners, however you want to call it. This includes Flutter Vikings, Flutter London, Flutter Munich, and Flutter New York City. Huge thank you for sharing this event with all other people on Twitter. And also, huge thanks to FinTech and Forbes for being our media partners.
Right. And when it comes to the partners, we also want to express our gratitude to Crédit Agricole team that has gathered here. I want to invite you to give them the warm applause. Yes, because the team from the Crédit Agricole is actually the main sponsor of the content for today's event. If they weren't be, so open when it comes to sharing the insights, sharing the learnings, this event would not be possible because they could have, hide behind NDAs and decided not to present learnings, not to present anything that was created during the last 12 months, but instead they decided to support the community, to support also our meetup and to give an allowance to present everything that we have learned over the last 12 months while accomplishing this amazing banking app. So once again, thank you to our team from Crédit Agricole.
Also, one huge thank you belongs to LeanCode, which is a software studio based here in Warsaw, Poland. And a huge thank you to them for being the sponsor and also the main organizer of this amazing event. So I think it requires an applause. Now, LeanCode has been developing apps in Flutter since the very inception of stable version of Flutter, even before that probably, since 2018. And besides the app we're going to be talking about today, they've also built over 25 other apps in Flutter already for clients all across the globe, including Poland, USA, UK, and Germany.
Right, and if you want to become the member of the team and grow with us and become future leaders of the next great apps, let's talk. so we are hiring. Right, and also great thanks to our partner, Maciej. Probably the most well-known YouTuber that is providing a great content for real-life projects that can help you to become a really fluent developer, a really fluent Flutter developer. Thanks to Maciej, you can find great lessons there that you can apply from day one to become the great Flutter developer and further develop your skills here. So follow ResoCoder, and a great applause to Maciej. Right, so after our short introduction, let's start with the agenda for today's meeting.
Exactly. So after this short welcome and introduction, we are going to start by inviting Katarzyna and Tomek to the stage. They are going to talk about, well, the CA24 Mobile app, which is full of Flutter benefits. Now, a short disclaimer, especially to our viewers on the live stream, this first talk is going to be in Polish. All the other talks afterwards, so that means the two talks which are afterwards, are going to be in English. We are still going to provide you with a short summary of what was being talked about in this first talk after it ends, but just realize that this first talk will be in Polish, so maybe if you don't understand Polish, you can just rest, have a drink, and then come afterwards, because at 6:50, we're going to be continuing with another talk by Mateusz Wojczak and Jakub Fiałkowski. They're going to be talking about Flutter at scale in this huge application that LeanCode has built. Then afterwards, after the second talk, we're going to have a short, around 15-minute break for drinks and beer and whatever. And then we're going to welcome the third speaker at this meetup, Albert Wolszon. He's going to talk about design system in a large Flutter app from the developers perspective, and it's going to be absolutely an amazing talk. I've learned a lot when I first heard it when we were just rehearsing, so definitely stick around for that. Afterwards, we're going to summarize everything, have additional announcements, and just by the way, Q&As for individual talks are going to be happening afterwards, right after the talk. So if you are here in person, we're going to come up to you, and if you have any questions, just probably raise your hand and we're going to come up to you and you can ask a question. But if you are on the live stream on YouTube, please let your questions be heard by typing them into the YouTube comments. We're going to sort through them and ask them to our speakers.
Right, and we also have two announcements because, as I mentioned before, we have an abundance of learnings from the project, and not all of them can be shared during the time-boxed talks. So we will publish the ebook version soon after the event, somewhere also in the middle of July. You can right now try to follow this link, scan QR code, and enroll already and subscribe for this ebook. So we will present there those learnings regarding how to build large-scale Flutter apps, and the whole story about how the design system for that project was created. So feel invited to download that ebook and subscribe for it in the first place. And we'll also give some additional background on the project. So especially our guests online who are not like English, Polish speaking, there will be also a summary of from the business perspective of that case, so you can catch up with that. Right, and the second announcement is indeed about this, about our first talk. So I'm already giving the floor to Katarzyna and Tomek, and we will, as Mati told before, we will have a short discussion after the talk already in English, so that again to summarize the key elements, key takeaways from the business perspective, because we are obviously focusing on the Flutter as Flutter Warsaw and all those technical details behind the curtain. But in order for you to fully embrace why it was super important for the entire community to have such a great case of the enterprise app, you also need to understand the business context. So we will give you a short discussion after this talk, and we will also present that we also present in English. Right. So. I guess that's it when it comes to our introductory part. So right now I ask all of you to give the warm welcome to Kasia and Tomek. Hello. Zapraszamy.
I think that we can start in English,
yes,
because
yes.
Kuba
please don't leave. The
yes.
non-Polish speakers, please stay with us. The presentation will be self-explanatory. I really believe it. And at the end of the presentation, we will do the recap so that you will see the pictures, and then you will see the recap at the end of the presentation. We did it in Polish.
Yes, but I think that we can start introduction still in English, or propose you if the presentation will be more interesting for you and not boring as the banking usually is, if you will ask for us the questions. That for sure in English, in Polish, you can ask the question, feel free in our presentation. That welcome, we are the first time in this kind of the technology event. Sorry if we are too nervous and not flexible, because usually we are have a presentation before the management board, or we are working with our teams. That's why the typical technology teams.
I recognize, so I feel like
yes, we see
safer.
Some people from our team in the room too. Okay, my name is Katarzyna Tomczyk-Czykier, and I am the person with the more than 20 years experience in banking, but can be interested that I finished the law study, but the customer experience, customer service was something in my heart very interesting. That's why I decided to finalize the law study with the banking law. And finally, I joined the BPH, one of the bank in the Polish market, and that was the moment of starting of my career of the banking. But I am the person which the change and challenge is motivate me and driven. That's why I am here to presenting you the implementation of technology project. And it is something interesting for me still that for sure maybe my basic and core education is not what I am doing every day in the banking with the colleagues. I don't know, Tomasz, what you want to say about
shortly,
you.
I'm technical guy. I'm a developer by birth, it was said, because this was my first experience. I'm in Crédit Agricole over 20 years, so my heart is still with this banking. I believe that today you will see very interesting presentation from the business perspective, but also from the technical perspective. We will show you how the decisions were made and why we are just very satisfied about the Flutter. So maybe we'll start. It should be in Polish.
Yes,
because
we will switch now to Polish. Okej, to jak widzicie, naszą aplikację nazywamy CA24 Mobile, aplikacja pełna korzyści. Tak też w komunikacji marketingowej do rynku i do klientów się komunikujemy i będziemy chcieli Wam pokazać, dlaczego ona jest pełna korzyści. Ja będę się bardziej koncentrować na pełnej korzyści, jeśli chodzi o aspekty biznesowe, a Tomek będzie robił ten bridge do Fluttera. Chcemy też pokazać, że tak naprawdę ta decyzja o wyborze technologii była też bardzo istotna z perspektywy realizacji celów biznesowych, które sobie stawialiśmy. Natomiast zaczniemy może od takiego, to strasznie szybko klika, od takiego krótkiego wprowadzenia. Nie wiem, czy znacie w ogóle Crédit Agricole brand? I pewnie znacie przez Dawida Podsiadło i przez panią Kasię. Jeszcze Dawid teraz jest bardzo fresh na swoich koncertach. To taki nasz złoty gral, ale my de facto koncentrujemy się na takiej strategii bycia równocześnie 100% digital i 100% human dla naszych klientów. I to jest coś, co bardzo nam przyświeca w realizacji projektów, rozwiązań, produktów i serwisów, które realizujemy dla klientów. Stąd to połączenie tego klienta i tego doradcy, a w tle technologii. I żeby Wam powiedzieć trochę o kontekście projektu, to powiemy trochę o kontekście rzeczywiście nas samych i potem grupy. No może jest to odkrycie dla niektórych, że tak naprawdę Crédit Agricole jest jedną z 10 największych grup finansowych na świecie. Koncentruje się głównie na swojej działalności we Francji, ale też na rynkach europejskich. Dwa największe duże ośrodki Crédit Agricole w Europie są Włochy i my. Jak widzicie, można powiedzieć, że to jest dinozaur, bo to jest 125 lat de facto bycia na rynku bankowym. Oczywiście mówimy o byciu na rynku bankowym we Francji. To jest taki ciekawy model, jak ktoś chciałby pogłębić, to polecam, dotyczący trochę banków, które wyrosły z biznesu agro, tak? Czyli rolnicy potrzebowali finansowania, potrzebowali współpracy i stwierdzili pewnego dnia, że potrzebują założyć bank. To taka ciekawa historia. Na polskim rynku jesteśmy od 20 lat. Wcześniejszy brand Crédit Agricole, ktoś wie?
Ktoś wie, jaki był wcześniejszy brand?
Tak powinno być w każdym banku. Taki slogan.
To był Lukas Bank.
Lukas
Ja
Bank.
chciałem tylko jedną rzecz technologiczną a propos historii. Myśmy w roku 2000 otworzyli naszą bankowość elektroniczną i byliśmy trzecim bankiem, który to zrobił, przed mBankiem i chyba w tym samym czasie, kiedy było Inteligo. Tak więc jakby nasza historia tej bankowości digitalnej jest naprawdę bardzo, bardzo bogata i długa.
Tak, i w zeszłym roku, jak mieliśmy w końcu przycisnąć magiczny przycisk i zamknąć starą bankowość elektroniczną, to mieliśmy, słuchajcie, ciągle klientów, którzy lubili starą bankowość i nie chcieli się skonwertować do nowej. To tak patrząc na zachowania klientów. Jeszcze jedno z tego slajdu powiem to, co istotne, że tak widzicie po prawej stronie mamy bardzo dużo brandów, które występują na polskim rynku, ale to też jest siła i moc grupy Crédit Agricole. My my jesteśmy w stanie dostarczać nie tylko produkty bankowe do wszystkich segmentów i działalności gospodarczej, i klientów korpo i oczywiście retailowych. W tym w retailu mamy również tak zwany e-commerce i consumer finance, czyli sprzedajemy kredyty ratalne we współpracy z dużymi i z małymi partnerami. Stąd, tak jak widzicie, nasza sieć punktów, gdzie sprzedawane są nasze produkty, jest naprawdę bardzo obszerna, bo powyżej 10 tysięcy punktów i całość naszej ekipy Crédit Agricole liczy ponad 5 tysięcy pracowników. Jeszcze jedna ciekawostka, jak, że tak powiem, wiecie, że leasing jest dość takim aktywnym produktem w Polsce, to grupa, firma Europejski Fundusz Leasingowy to też jest brand Crédit Agricole i ubezpieczenia, asset management, fundusze z Amundi. No i teraz, żeby powiedzieć o grupie, to tak naprawdę to, co najważniejsze, to chcielibyśmy powiedzieć, że to jest ta grupa, która, tak jak widzicie tutaj w wynikach finansowych, ale też w ratingach, jest bardzo stabilna finansowo. Biorąc pod uwagę bardzo wysoki udział w rynku francuskim, szuka dużego potencjału do wzrostu i do realizacji inwestycji i kapitalizacji, że tak powiem, na innych rynkach europejskich i światowych. No i dlatego my jako Crédit Agricole Bank Polska mieliśmy przyjemność po prostu dostać dodatkowe środki inwestycyjne.
Tak, duży kapitał na duży projekt. Nie? To jest ważne, to chcieliśmy wam podkreślić. Jest duże wsparcie, duża inwestycja, dzięki temu jesteśmy w stanie robić duże projekty informatyczne również.
Tak.
To jest taki message, który chciałem wam przekazać.
Tak, i to był nas
że w małych
kluczowy.
startupach nie zawsze jest tak. Tu jest duży kapitał, który pozwala naprawdę się bardzo mocno rozwinąć.
Tak. Ale żeby dostać dobrą kasę, no to słuchajcie, trzeba też zadeklarować, jakie cele biznesowe się zrealizuje, bo każdy inwestor będzie szukał, że tak powiem, zwrotu z tej inwestycji i dokładnie oglądał wasz business case. Więc my, żeby dostać tą dużą kasę na realizację projektu, my realizowaliśmy ten projekt w dwóch takich tribach, tribe seamless i tribe omnichannel. Musieliśmy zadeklarować realizację pewnych celów biznesowych. No i takie jak widzicie, pierwszy cel to jest to, żeby ta nasza aplikacja bankowa, którą stworzyliśmy, była top 3. Pokażemy też w rankingu, jak duże to jest wyzwanie. My patrzyliśmy to z perspektywy takiej, że dobrze wiemy, że większość klientów posiada już w tej chwili konto bankowe i relację bankową. Pewnie tylko, że tak powiem, nawet
mają
młodzież.
Konto bankowe, bo,
tak, i dzieci. Tak,
Chcieliśmy się
no
tylko
właśnie,
upewnić.
więc, że tak powiem, żeby prowadzić wzrost twojej bazy klientów, musisz akwirować i żeby się znajdować w pewnym, że tak powiem, wąskim polu wyboru tych klientów, musisz im dostarczać produkt, serwis, nie wiem, cenę, usługę, coś, co tak naprawdę będzie ich przekonywało do tego, żeby do ciebie dołączyli i wybrali to twoją ofertę. Więc my wiedzieliśmy, że musimy mieć aplikację mobilną w świecie bardzo dynamicznie zmieniającego się światu technologii i mobilnych device'ów, która po prostu będzie top i to jest nasz cel do tego, żeby właśnie znaleźć się w tym wąskim range'u wyborów, żeby się przeswitchować do innego banku. No równocześnie w związku z tym mówiliśmy sobie, że mamy cel akwizycyjny, chcemy przyrastać i naszym ambicją taką jest, żeby w przyszłym roku osiągnąć cel 1 000 000 aktywnych klientów. Na takiej stałej relacji my mówimy, aktywny klient to jest taki, który przelewa wynagrodzenie lub taki, który wykonuje transakcje u ciebie na koncie każdego miesiąca. Czyli nie mówimy o klientach, którzy są gdzieś zdywersyfikowani, mówimy o takim aktywnym, który główny daily banking przerzuca tutaj u siebie. Top Customer Recommendation Index, polecam z zeszłego tygodnia wyniki, Gazeta Prawna, Gwiazdy Bankowości. Udało nam się obronić drugą pozycję, jeśli chodzi o relacje z klientem, ING, Crédit Agricole i Millennium. I my właśnie ten 100% human, 100% digital to jest właśnie ten nasz ambitny cel bycia w bardzo bliskiej relacji z klientem. No i jeszcze kilka dodatkowych celów. Jeden może tutaj dodatkowy wartość to jest ten time to market, który wynika z tego, że chcieliśmy oba te projekty Seamless i Omnichannel prowadzić w modelu agile'owym. Wiedzieliśmy, że podejście do jak gdyby prowadzenia projektów w modelu agile'owym end-to-endowo no będzie czymś, co da nam w bardzo krótkim, bo de facto 9-miesięcznym okresie czasu realizację tej naszej ambicji. No i tak jak widzicie, zaczynamy się specjalizować też w automatyzacji basic serwisów dla klienta, bo na przykład na naszej infolinii możecie spotkać telebota, młodszą siostrę pani Kasi Asię, która chętnie pomoże, a mamy też chatboty zarówno na stronie www, jak i chatlive i chatboty pod e-bankiem. Także tu też automatyzujemy serwisy. A, no ja cię mam za ciężki palec, tak
Kasia,
jak
tak,
pedał.
musimy przyspieszać.
Dobra, już
patrzę się na
przyspieszam.
zegarek.
Dobrze. No i równocześnie wiedzieliśmy, słuchajcie, że w świecie po-covidowym nasza misja to jest praca na rzecz klienta i partnera każdego dnia. Wiedzieliśmy, że zmieniają się zachowania klientów, że klienci coraz rzadziej odwiedzają placówki bankowe, ale równocześnie bardzo sobie cenią kontakt z naszym doradcą, więc wiedzieliśmy, że musimy zacząć integrować nasze kanały, bo każdy z nich był bardzo silny, natomiast do tego, żeby spełnić oczekiwania klientów i ten rosnący flow ich aktywności w kanałach digital, musieliśmy zacząć te kanały mocno integrować i ten nasz projekt też dał nam taką możliwość. No i tak jak widzicie, silnie powiedzieliśmy sobie, jakie są segmenty klientów, do których będziemy uderzać, które kanały pełnią jaką rolę. No i tutaj najważniejszy dla nas dzisiaj to jest kwestia dotycząca właśnie aplikacji mobilnej. Powiedzieliśmy sobie, że ta aplikacja ma być full self-service dla klienta, ale ona ma mieć basic, proste procesy, ale też dostarczać dodatkową wartość w postaci właśnie tych benefitów i bycia tą pełną korzyści. Teraz ten punkt startowy dla nas, tak jak widzicie, no jest, że tak powiem, bardzo niski. My mamy tego świadomość, że nasza stara apka, pomimo że dość wysoko oceniana w sklepie przez portfel istniejących klientów, no to ona z punktu widzenia rankingowania i pewnej punktacji, która jest składową i funkcjonalności, i procesów, i UX, UI, no jak gdyby była niska. My stworzyliśmy produkt, który teraz, który wdrożyliśmy w tym modelu MVP 1 pierwszego kroku, zakładamy, że nas dźwignie na 6. pozycję, natomiast naszym celem jest, żeby do końca tego roku dostarczyć jeszcze rozwój naszej aplikacji, w tym MVP 2, jak gdyby mieć szansę sięgnąć tego top 3 i wtedy rozpocząć dużą akwizycję rynkową nowych klientów. No i teraz pytanie, czy ta decyzja o rozpoczęciu tego projektu była łatwa i jakie były dwa pierwsze działania, które podjęliśmy. Pierwsze to była kwestia dotycząca designu i wybrania jak gdyby agencji, która zmierzy się z tym wyzwaniem dotyczącego bardzo nowoczesnego designu, który też będzie spełniał pewne oczekiwania biznesowe, oczekiwania klientów, no i technologii, tak, w której, że tak powiem, musimy ją dostarczyć. Stąd było pytanie, czy Flutter jest pełen korzyści i czy pozwoli nam dostarczyć ten produkt jako aplikację pełną korzyści. Znaliśmy ograniczenia starej apki, to było rozwiązanie pudełkowe, jak to w grupie czasami wciśnięte na siłę, bez możliwości rozwoju, bez możliwości personalizacji, integracji z wieloma komponentami, więc mieliśmy tego świadomość, że na bazie starej platformy nie jesteśmy w stanie z tą aplikacją nic zrobić, dlatego zdecydowaliśmy się na budowę nowej aplikacji kompletnie zaczynając od, można powiedzieć, pustej kartki. Ta aplikacja miała odpowiadać na potrzeby biznesowe, na realizację strategii banku, na elastyczność rozwoju, na szybki time to market, na szerokie integracje z innymi komponentami, no i tak naprawdę wejścia do tej rynkowej czołówki. I żeby powiedzieć, co dla nas najważniejsze było w pierwszym elemencie designu, usiedliśmy i powiedzieliśmy sobie, OK, to od których obszarów musimy zacząć, bo tego typu produktu nie da się, że tak powiem, jako najlepszego produktu na świecie, a tak zawsze eksperci chcieliby dostarczyć taki produkt klientowi, zrobić w jednym wave'ie, więc my powiedzieliśmy sobie, że właśnie tylko stworzenie wspaniałego doświadczenia klienta, ten seamless w aplikacji, to zachwycenie się aplikacją i dostarczenie tych dodatkowych benefitów, korzyści było czymś najbardziej kluczowym, dlatego to ten pierwszy i drugi krok zrealizowaliśmy w tym MVP 1. Ciągle przed nami będzie kwestia dotycząca dostarczania dodatkowych procesów w aplikacji i to będzie constant development, który planujemy w kolejnych MVP aplikacji. No i co? I chcieliśmy wam na chwilę pokazać tą aplikację.
Mamy film przygotowany.
To będzie taki filmik marketingowy.
Halawus, prosimy o
Tak, to będzie taki filmik
Dziękuję.
marketingowy.
Poznaj nową aplikację CA24 Mobile. Aplikację pełną korzyści. Wybieraj w rabatach do ulubionych sklepów. Korzystaj z wyjątkowych ofert naszych produktów. Odkrywaj wygodny i intuicyjny świat finansów. To, co ważne, masz zawsze pod ręką. Płatności, pieniądze, majątek, korzyści. Przejdziesz tam jednym klikiem. Bezpiecznie zarządzasz swoimi finansami.
Wygodnie kontaktujesz się z naszymi doradcami.
Zachwyć się wyglądem. Pokochaj za wygodę.
Już dziś pobierz CA24 Mobile pełną korzyści.
Aplikacja w pełni napisana we Flutterze, więc bardzo się cieszymy, że mogliśmy w ciągu 9 miesięcy from scratch taką aplikację dostarczyć. Jesteśmy z niej dumni. Jak wam się podoba design? Albert jest... Tak. Następny, tak. Dobrze. Słuchajcie, teraz przejdziemy do technologii. Ja postaram się zwrócić wam uwagę nie na same technologiczne aspekty, bo wy się na tym dużo lepiej znacie ode mnie. Ja wam powiem o tych kryteriach, czy też to, co widzieliśmy z naszej perspektywy, troszeczkę nie znając tej technologii. I to, co Kasia mówiła, dlaczego potrzebowaliśmy nowej aplikacji, dlaczego potrzebowaliśmy przełomowego jakby zmiany w tej aplikacji, to w kontekście biznesowym to żeśmy powiedzieli. Szukaliśmy technologii, która nas wesprze. Szukaliśmy odpowiedzi na pytanie, czy będziemy robili aplikację w natywie, czyli rzeczywiście będziemy dewelopowali na każdą platformę, czy jednak rozwiązanie cross-platformowe jest dla nas odpowiedzią. Mieliśmy jakieś negatywne doświadczenia, coraz gorsze doświadczenia z budowania aplikacji w trybie natywnym. Koszty maintenance'u zaczęły nam rosnąć, aplikacje zaczęły nam się rozjeżdżać, bo to de facto inne platformy. Ciężko było w ogóle zapanować nad odpowiednim time to market. Aplikacja w zasadzie przestała żyć. Wiedzieliśmy, że to wymaga po prostu zbudowania czegoś od podstaw. Dlatego zaczęliśmy się zastanawiać, czy rozwiązanie cross-platformowe będzie dla nas odpowiedzią. Zależało właśnie nam na tej spójności w wyglądzie, w działaniu tej aplikacji. No i trochę baliśmy się, że rozwiązania cross-platformowe będą niosły za sobą jakieś ograniczenia. Wiedzieliśmy, że native to na pewno jest szybka technologia, na pewno wspierana. Natomiast cross-platformowe gdzieś czuliśmy intuicyjnie, ale też podpowiedzi były z różnych innych projektów, że nie zawsze to może być efektywne. Baliśmy się o wydajność. Trochę musieliśmy to sprawdzać. Sprawdzaliśmy też w kontekście cross-platformowych rozwiązań dwie najbardziej popularne rozwiązania, dwa rozwiązania. React Native był uważany wtedy, jak żeśmy podejmowali decyzję, za bardziej dojrzałą, bardziej popularną. Natomiast chcieliśmy postawić na coś bardziej innowacyjnego, bardziej nowoczesnego, po to, żeby rzeczywiście pójść jakimś takim shortcutem, taką akceleracją. Baliśmy się trochę o wydajność silnika, ale okazało się, że rzeczywiście te 120 klatek, które gdzieś tam było obiecane, jest dostępne dla nas. Widzieliśmy, obserwowaliśmy rosnące community, czego też trochę obawialiśmy się, że te community jest zbyt małe, żeby rzeczywiście dźwignąć i wspierać nasz development. Potrzebowaliśmy sporej liczby deweloperów. Baliśmy też się tego, że to jest produkt od Google'a. Mieliśmy złe doświadczenie z jednym produktem, Google w pewnym momencie porzucił to i zostaliśmy sami i de facto byliśmy na ścieżce trochę pozostawieni sami sobie na etapie wycofania się z tej technologii, więc trochę też na pewnym ryzyku. działaliśmy, ale żeby się z tym zmierzyć, postanowiliśmy zrobić POCE. Zrobiliśmy 3 POCE z 3 różnymi firmami, między innymi też z LeanCodem. Te POCE pokazały, że jest i wydajnie, i efektywnie, jest szybki development, ale też nasze requesty, nasze zapotrzebowania znalazły odpowiedź w postaci działającego demo aplikacji. W piątek mówiliśmy o tym, co potrzebujemy, w poniedziałek rano mieliśmy aplikację, więc to też jakby pokazało o to, co nam chodziło, o tą efektywność na 2 platformach. To, co jeszcze było dla nas ciekawe i interesujące, to to, że widzieliśmy w tym potencjał do developmentu dla platformy webowej, dlatego że my też mamy w planach wymianę platformą webową. Na razie nie podjęliśmy takiej decyzji, że to jest Flutter, ale ten potencjał cały czas widzimy i wtedy, kiedy podejmowaliśmy te decyzje, było to niezwykle istotne, żeby widzieć ten potencjał, ten outlook, że ta technologia ma potencjał nie tylko i wyłącznie w mobilnej części, ale również w tej części webowej. Te obawy, o których mówiłem, trochę też tutaj wspominał o nich, tak? Czyli że zaczęliśmy analizować ryzyka dotyczące tego, czy ten rynek flatterowy, czy ta technologia nie jest jeszcze zbyt młoda, bo de facto robiliśmy poważną aplikację mobilną dla klientów, którzy operują na swoich finansach. To nie była gra, to była poważna aplikacja mobilna. Musieliśmy rzeczywiście odpowiedzieć sobie na pytanie, czy technologia jest na tyle dojrzała, żeby to zrobić. O Google już mówiłem, też było dużo zapytania. GWT to jest ta technologia, która została porzucona. Czy aplikacje we Flutterze są bezpieczne, więc żeśmy rzeczywiście robili mnóstwo researchu, też robiliśmy badania, które nam potwierdziły, że tak to jest. O wydajności silnika też mówiłem. Trochę nie wiedzieliśmy, jak się zachowa Flutter w kontekście dostępu do warstw natywnych telefonów. No, doskonale wiecie, w jaki sposób to się odbywa, to z jakimiś bridge'ami. Ja nie będę w to wnikał, ale mieliśmy jakby znak zapytania. Część znawców technologii mobilnej, którzy dosyć mocno byli osadzeni w tej części natywnej, mówili, to na pewno tak nie działa fajnie. To na pewno nie jest tak, że łatwo dostać się do Bluetootha czy do jakichś innych rzeczy. Na pewno tam jest jakaś trudność i na pewno to nie będzie działało. Trochę musieliśmy tego słuchać, trochę musieliśmy myśleć trochę w kontrze, żeby podejmować odważne decyzje. No i rynek deweloperów wciąż był mały, obserwowaliśmy, kogo możemy pozyskać na rynku. Wydaje nam się, że dotarliśmy chyba do wszystkich firm w Polsce, które oferują flatterowców i na rynku wrocławskim i warszawskim. I mieliśmy świadomość tego, że ten rynek nie jest taki bogaty jak na przykład rynek deweloperów Reacta.
Tak, i tu można powiedzieć, to jest ważny punkt, jeżeli ktoś na sali wspiera, że tak powiem, żeby tą technologię sprzedawać do projektów, to konsultanci nie są gotowi, żeby sprzedawać Fluttera. Więc my de facto sami wewnętrznym teamem i trochę biorąc risk na siebie, po prostu zarekomendowaliśmy pójście we Fluttera. I to była naprawdę, nawet staliśmy naprzeciwko konsultanta, który wspierał nas dużego z Wielkiej Trójki i ten konsultant nie rekomendował, żeby pójść we Fluttera. My się zaangażowaliśmy z wewnętrznym teamem, żeby zrobić ten cały research, analizę i po prostu podjęliśmy to ryzyko.
Ja myślę, że Kasia, po naszym projekcie oni zmienili zdanie.
No tak, nie mieli innego
Natomiast
wyjścia.
pamiętajcie, że duże firmy konsultingowe cały czas jeszcze chyba nie mają przekonania co do tego Fluttera. Takie przynajmniej mieliśmy wtedy przekonanie. Teraz pewnie po naszym projekcie myślę, że jesteśmy game changerami na tym rynku konsultingu, że nasz projekt pokazał, że rzeczywiście się da. Kryteria walidacji, no to dojrzałość produktu. Staraliśmy się zbadać, jak ta dojrzałość, która aktualnie wtedy była dostępna, odpowiada naszym potrzebom. Wizja przyszłości, czyli wiedzieliśmy, że rzeczywiście rosnące zainteresowanie tą technologią, obserwowaliśmy też community, widzieliśmy potencjał tego, co rzeczywiście Google i community jest w stanie dostarczyć, więc to przekonało nas do tego, żeby rzeczywiście uwierzyć w tą technologię. Ta wizja rzeczywiście nam się jawiła dosyć prosto. Możliwości UI, UX-a to tutaj dużo żeśmy odkryli za pomocą POC, ale też i również różnych prezentacji, czy też wideo dzisiaj. Marcin Szałek jest, tak, to od niego się wszystko zaczęło, prawdę powiedziawszy, jeżeli chodzi o moją drogę z Flutterem. Widziałem jego prezentację dotyczącą pokazania, jakie możliwości graficzne daje UX-owe, UI-owe daje Flutter i rzeczywiście to później się sprawdziło w tych
Tak,
częściach.
designerski team jest bardzo zadowolony ze swojego produktu, nie tylko na Figmie w postaci mock-upów, ale w prawdziwej aplikacji.
Tak,
Także
badaliśmy dostępność zasobów, badaliśmy bezpieczeństwo, o czym mówiłem i na samym końcu, pomimo właśnie różnych rekomendacji nie do końca wspierających tego Fluttera, wybraliśmy najlepszą technologię dla naszego case'u. Jestem o tym przekonany. Jest to oczywiście Flutter i jak widzicie już mój entuzjazm, więc mogę teraz powiedzieć, że tak, jesteśmy zadowoleni z tej decyzji. Tak? Z tej trudnej decyzji, bo ona była uwarunkowana wieloma ryzykami i o tych ryzykach wam właśnie mówimy, ale pomimo tego postanowiliśmy zaryzykować, oczywiście biorąc pod uwagę dobrą analizę tego ryzyka i wybraliśmy tą technologię.
tak, tu nie mówimy też o tych elementach dotyczących kosztów wytwórczego, ale tak naprawdę jakbyście budowali business case, to naprawdę można znaleźć wiele elementów, które pokaże, że to będzie też tańsze rozwiązanie.
Tak. Oczywiście sami tego nie zrobiliśmy, musieliśmy zaprosić do współpracy wielu partnerów. Mieliśmy grupę, my jako Crédit Agricole zapewnialiśmy chapter lead, czyli ten framework skład, czyli zapewnialiśmy jakby podstawy organizacyjne i też architektoniczne. Zaprosiliśmy do współpracy LeanCode, który wydawał się nam w tej chwili, wtedy i teraz też jakby z największym potencjałem flutterowym, ale bez doświadczenia w pracy z nami i też z dużą organizacją finansową. Mieliśmy dwóch partnerów, którzy z nami od wielu lat pracowali, to jest Divinity i Savantgard. Divinity jest również firmą, która dostarcza aplikacje flutterowe. Savantgard jest firmą, która z nami od wielu, wielu lat właśnie dostarcza rozwiązania do bankowości elektronicznej i również tej poprzedniej mobilnej, więc jakby te 4 teamy dzięki współpracy, zaufaniu, wierze w sukces, co jakby tworzyło się i narastało wraz z projektem, jak i sympatią, które się nawiązały pomiędzy ludźmi, otwartości, wsparciu i profesjonalizmu poszczególnych osób na różnych platformach, i mobilnej, i tej backendowej, doprowadziły do tego, że rzeczywiście osiągnęliśmy sukces. Tak? Więc ta wiara w ten sukces rzeczywiście nas niosła i powodowała, że za chwileczkę zapomnieliśmy, kto jest z której firmy i pracowaliśmy wspólnie nad osiągnięciem tego celu. Jak projekt był zorganizowany? To był projekt agile'owy, jak już Kasia wspomniała. W tym projekcie brało ponad 200 osób. Jeżeli mówimy o tym, że to jest tribe, czyli coś, co wywodzi się z koncepcji Spotify'owej, tak? Byliśmy wioską, która ma ponad 200 osób. Z tego około 100 osób to było ludzie z IT, a zespół flutterowy to było ponad 20, pewnie miejscowo nawet i 25 osób pracowało w tym projekcie. Mieliśmy też około 20 paru deweloperów backendowych, więc to był takie jakby troszeczkę informacji na temat liczb. Gdzieś benchmarkowo słyszeliśmy o tym, że 150 to już jest duży tribe, więc mieliśmy 200 osób ogarniętych w ramach tak zwanych składów. Pod spodem widzicie, że mieliśmy 12 składów biznesowych, które dostarczały różne funkcjonalności. Częściowo widzieliście je na tej prezentacji. Mieliśmy 4 dedykowane składy. Skład numer 1 to był skład odpowiedzialny za design. Właśnie w tym składzie była jakby główna koncepcja, design system. I o tym składzie, czy też o tym design systemie będzie wam opowiadał Albert w prezentacji, którą rzeczywiście została zapowiedziana, więc ja nie będę opowiadał o szczegółach, zostawiam to Albertowi. Mieliśmy 2 składy techniczne, 12 i 13. To jest ważne, żeby powiedzieć, 12 to był taki skład platformowy, który zapewniał tak naprawdę ciągłość, dostępność do środowisk. Taki trochę niezwiązany z samym Flutterem, ale to była taka maszynownia. Skład 13 niezwykle istotny. To on ustawił jakby pracę flutterową, ustawił framework, podział odpowiedzialności. To był ten Flutter at Scale, chyba na taką skalę niespotykaną na rynku polskim. I o tym, jak Flutter at Scale i framework team funkcjonował, opowie wam Mateusz i Kuba też z zapowiedzianej prezentacji. Mieliśmy skład jeszcze 16, on jest tutaj wydzielony, to jest skład, który był składem biznesowym. Ten skład panował nad tym, żeby rzeczywiście ten rollout biznesowy aplikacji wyszedł nam dobrze. To znaczy można zrobić dobrze produkt technologicznie, ale można go spalić w ogóle rolloutem, więc mieliśmy też osobny zespół, który zajmował się rolloutem. Mieliśmy 3-miesięczny okres tak zwanego Family and Friends, bo aplikacja na produkcji była już w lutym, a 3-miesięczny okres mieliśmy takiej stabilizacji, dokładania nowych funkcjonalności, więc jakby ten MVP 0.1 bym powiedział jeszcze było szybsze niż to, co żeśmy osiągnęli w założeniach.
No i trzeba jeszcze dodać, że zaczynaliśmy pracę, słuchajcie, w COVID-zie prawie fully remote, nie? Więc ogarnąć 200 osób, tyle składów i cały support ze strony banku dla Tribe'u i jeszcze rozstrzygać zależności z integracjami z innych Tribe'ów, to naprawdę było wyzwanie. Natomiast przyszedł taki moment, gdzie mogliśmy z powrotem integrować i pracować jednak już nie fully remote, tylko hybrydowo i bardzo chętnie to robiliśmy. Mamy ludzi z całej Polski pracujących u nas na projekcie, także i bardzo chętnie zapraszamy tych ludzi na planning raz w miesiącu, minimum na spotkanie do Wrocławia, żeby mogli w ramach składów po prostu się integrować i tworzyć wartość.
Ja nie wiem, czy to Flutter, czy coś innego spowodowało to, że my w zasadzie po 3 tygodniach byliśmy gotowi do tego, żeby rozpocząć pewien development. Miałem wrażenie, że albo technologia, albo ludzie, którzy przyszli do nas do projektu, są na tyle dobrze zorientowani, żeby tak szybko wystartować projekt w takiej skali. Byliśmy rzeczywiście zbudowani tym, więc ja po cichu liczę, że jedno i drugie. Więc to też być może jest ta zaleta Fluttera, który pozwala być może budować wygodne środowiska, ale też i być może doświadczenie innych osób. Razem osiągnęliśmy sukces, bo mieliśmy sporo wartości, w które wierzyliśmy. Tak? Te wartości zintegrowały nasz zespół, ale też po raz pierwszy na taką skalę w banku żeśmy zastosowali Agile'a, więc myśleliśmy o wartości dla klienta, wiedzieliśmy, że odpowiedzialność złożona po poszczególnych składach jest istotna w tym wszystkim. Tak? Nie pracowaliśmy w ten sposób, że każdy deweloper był osadzony w składzie biznesowym. To nie było tak, że byli deweloperzy jako jedna grupa, do której się zlecało pracę, tylko ci deweloperzy trafili ze swoim flutterowym doświadczeniem do poszczególnych składów biznesowych i tam dzień po dniu wykuwali ten biznesowy delivery. To dlatego dużo żeśmy mówili o tym biznesowym delivery na początku i o tym kontekście, bo on był niezwykle istotny. Flutter developer rozumiejący w ogóle po co był biznes, lepiej funkcjonował. Ta współpraca, transparencja, czyli wszystkie te wartości, które pochodzą z Agile'a, myśmy starali się implementować w pełni i nie mieliśmy chyba innego wyjścia, bo na zaufaniu też musieliśmy dużo polegać, bo byliśmy remotely. Znaczy COVID spowodował, że po prostu byliśmy remotely, to była jedyna możliwa implementacja. To, co było dodatkowym czynnikiem sukcesu, to jest na pewno to, że był projekt innowacyjny ze względu na Flutter at Scale, na to, że żeśmy zdecydowali się w takim krótkim czasie, przy takim dużym inwestycji zadziałać. O podejściu zwinnym mówiłem, to było coś dla nas nowego, na taką skalę myślę, że dla wielu organizacji. Silna koncentracja na celu i duże wsparcie zarządu. Dla nas mieliśmy poczucie z Kasią, że to było projekt numer 1. Są, wiecie, jak różne projekty w dużych organizacjach. Jeżeli projekt jest projektem numer 1, czujecie się wsparcie, jest wsparcie finansowe i wsparcie zarządu, to jedzie. A jeżeli jest jeszcze dobra technologia, dobra organizacja, kompetentni, odpowiedzialni ludzie, to jedzie to 2 razy szybciej. I tego żeśmy doświadczyli. Chyba to wszystko powodowało, że to po prostu zadziałało, że dostarczyliśmy aplikację from scratch we Flutterze, pomimo tych początkowych kłopotów z procesem decyzyjnym w ciągu 9 miesięcy. Kasia, projekt...
Tu nie mówimy o niczym innym, co może Tomek wcześniej mówił. Tu chcielibyśmy tylko zwrócić uwagę wam na skalę. Prawie 6000 Mendejów, to był tylko MVP 1, bo teraz to już jest dużo więcej. Mamy ponad 165 funkcjonalności samej apce, to jest prawie 1100 user story, 4000 scenariuszy testowych i ponad 3000 błędów. Tu jeśli chodzi o czyszczenie i fiksowanie błędów, ale też kwestię dotyczącą przygotowania do takiego dużego otwarcia na rynek, to tutaj możemy powiedzieć, że trzeba mieć taki continuous improvement procesów testowych i to było coś dla nas odkrywczego, że nagle się okazywało, że jednak chyba nie jesteśmy do dnia 0 gotowi i jednak tu element testowania i fiksowania błędów był pewnego rodzaju wyzwaniem przed dniem 0.
Okazuje się, że we Flutterze jednak można zrobić błędy, tak więc to ostrzegam, że jeżeli ktoś myśli, że we Flutterze wszystko działa od razu seamless, to tak nie jest. Trzeba rzeczywiście wykazać się, a zresztą sami wiecie, tak, jakby bez odpowiedniego procesu testowania i planowania.
Tak, no i można też powiedzieć, że pracowaliśmy na prędkości i widać było, że te nasze zespoły, tu nie pokazują takiej krzywej dojrzałości i prędkości tych w Mendejach dostarczania ze sprintu na sprint, ale mieliśmy taki sprint, gdzie potrafiliśmy właśnie plus 380% prędkości dostarczyć. I tu była duża praca też w tym dev chapterze, tam gdzie, że tak powiem, słuchaliśmy deweloperów, nie? Nie lubimy rutyny, designerzy zmieniają mock-upy, no także dużo było pracy i słuchania feedbacku dev chaptera, żeby podnosić efektywność deweloperską, adresując ten feedback od chaptera deweloperskiego i to było coś, co było jednym z kluczowych też elementów. No i słuchajcie, mieliśmy też taką wewnętrzną animację, po prostu jak mówiliśmy, że pracujemy transparentnie według wartości Agile, to mieliśmy też taką animację, w której zespoły mogły typować swoich bohaterów. Dla bohaterów mieliśmy fajne nagrody i na tej sali na pewno siedzi kilka bohaterów od nas z projektu.
Brawa dla bohaterów. Słuchajcie, to był niezwykle ważny moment, tak? Że rzeczywiście myśmy zbudowali wokół Fluttera, wokół tej technologii jakiegoś taki pewnego rodzaju hype, nie? Ale też zbudowaliśmy rzeczywiście zespoły i to jakby jedno, i technologia, i Agile, to wszystko ładnie zagrało.
No tak, no i mieliśmy dzień sukcesu
Tak,
i uważamy,
cieszyliśmy się.
że
To radość pełna, naprawdę.
Tak, że tak jak w Agile'u wiecie dobrze, że top management może coś zepsuć, to jest akurat przykład na partnerstwo i na zespół ludzi, któremu udało się nie zepsuć w projekcie agile'owym tego projektu i dostarczyć ten produkt w budżecie, czasie i na dziś satysfakcji klientów, także naprawdę jesteśmy dumni. Kluczowe 3 role, technical
Prezes
tribe
jest
owner,
zadowolony,
nasz
Chief
sponsor,
Product Owner jest
tak,
zadowolony.
Chief Product Owner odpowiedzialny, nasz wewnętrzny klient, który najbardziej musi być zadowolony, także jesteśmy z tego dumni i bardzo zadowoleni.
Pokazujemy ten slajd, żeby wam pokazać, że tą radość, jaką żeśmy na samym końcu mieli z osiągnięcia tego celu, była naprawdę taka uczciwa, prawdziwa, nieposkromiona i myślę, że ona dotyczyła wszystkich, nie tylko i wyłącznie tej części zarządczej, ale tak naprawdę myśmy po tym evencie mieli imprezę i naprawdę czuło się rzeczywiście, że to po prostu był fajny projekt. Taki projekt, który rzeczywiście pokazuje, że w korpo, bo bank jest korpo, da się zrobić bardzo fajne projekty. Fajne, które są inspirujące, dają perspektywę właśnie dużego projektu, a z drugiej strony poprzez to, że są fajni ludzie, fajny projekt, fajnie się jest to zarządzone i jest ta odpowiedzialność przekazana w dół, można czuć się, że w korpo można zrobić fajne projekty jak w startupie. Chciałem wam na to zwrócić uwagę, że właśnie Bank Crédit Agricole daje takie możliwości. I myśmy to poczuli.
Tak, dlatego jeszcze ciągle pracujemy w Crédit Agricole.
I last but not least chciałem wam powiedzieć, że my mamy w celach również nie tylko te funkcjonalności biznesowe, ale też mamy następny cel taki wewnętrzny. Chcielibyśmy już w tej chwili rozpocząć pracę nad budową tych kompetencji wewnętrznie. Dlatego jeżeli ktoś jest zainteresowany współpracą z nami, to zapraszamy. Ja tylko opowiem króciutko, dlaczego was zachęcamy, bo mamy aplikację pełną korzyści, która jest korzyścią dla ciebie. Co jest ważne, chcemy pozostać liderem na rynku flutterowym, jeżeli chodzi o aplikację mobilną. Będziemy się ścigać z innymi bankami. Słyszałem, że jakiś bank w Rosji ogłosił, że jest większą aplikację. Pierwszy. Nieprawda. Będziemy rzeczywiście cały czas starali się być tą aplikacją numer 1 na rynku bankowym, jeżeli chodzi o technologię. Top 3 aplikacji bankowej to nie jest aplikacja, którą piszecie i ona jest na dole listy. To jest aplikacja, która jest top 3 w ważnym, niezwykle istotnym segmencie. Agile at Scale dla tych, którzy chcieliby zobaczyć, jak działa Agile na przykładzie 200 osób. To jest właśnie to miejsce. Nie zawsze taka jest możliwość. I mamy nowe funkcjonalności w drodze, nie tylko takie podstawowe bankowe, ale mamy sporo takich value added services.
Tak, no i nie tylko w CA24 Mobile, bo piszemy też teraz doradca CA, aplikację taką frontendową dla doradców w placówkach bankowych i też zdecydowaliśmy, że Flutter będzie tą platformą.
Bank Crédit Agricole to fantastyczna atmosfera. Wiele ludzi, którzy odchodzi od nas z firmy, ja powiem w ten sposób, często mówi, wracam myślami do tego, że tutaj są fantastyczni ludzie. Odchodzą z jakichś innych powodów, ale rzeczywiście często wracają dlatego, że są fantastyczni ludzie. Ciekawe projekty, Agile at Scale, mówiłem, ścieżki kariery, mówimy o tym, że jest potencjał na to, żeby zająć się nie do końca być może bankowością elektroniczną, ale jakimiś innymi tematami. Standardowe benefity wynikające z tego, że jesteśmy firmą dbającą o pracowników. Zapewniamy też pracę hybrydową, czy też pracę zdalną, więc jesteśmy gotowi również na ten model.
Tak, mamy fajne biuro,
tak,
ale pracujemy
nowoczesne.
hybrydowo, także.
Tak, więc jest i jedno i drugie. Mamy biznes odpowiedzialny społecznie. My jako bank dosyć mocno jesteśmy uwrażliwieni na tą część social i human. Bierzemy udział w takich akcjach, które rzeczywiście promują tą odpowiedzialność biznesową, tak? Mamy mniej plastiku, środowisko, sprzątamy rzeki, więc jesteśmy dosyć mocno obecni również w takich aspektach. Jeżeli to jest dla Was ważne, to warto rzeczywiście się tym zainteresować. No i last but not least, Dawid Podsiadło, inspirujący ambasador, o którego żeśmy zaczęli. Wydaje mi się, że to jest naprawdę rzeczywiście postać, która dobrze jakby rezonuje z tym, co bank robi i rezonuje
Tak, dla
z tym.
milenialsów i dla mentalnych milenialsów również, także załapiemy się i my, i młodsi również.
Dziękujemy za prezentację. Thank you for being with us. Thank you that we could share also the business perspective and also the technical one. The most important thing we discussed with Łukasz is just not to present in details about the Flutter, but telling you something about the experience that we had during the process of selection of the technology and what we believe and what we gain from that technology. And you can see the smile on my face and Kasia's face that we are pretty happy, successful. Łukasz, what did you understand from the presentation?
Right. I see that your faces are indeed indicating that you're happy with the results achieved. That's great. And right, so I think like the biggest learning is that because we are here like focusing on the technology, right, on the Flutter, how great it is, etc. And what you did is what actually like you are not implementing Flutter for the sake of implementing Flutter and for the sake of being innovative, but you have very ambitious goals, right? You want to be like, you want Credit Agricole mobile banking application to be in the top 3 in a very competitive market. So what role is application playing in your business strategy from that perspective?
Yes, we think that it will be more than 80% of the transaction and daily activity customer will receive and will provide by the mobile application. And for sure, that's why the seamless, then usability, then special, full of benefits, it is something what will be as a trigger to acquire new customer to us. That we are thinking that it's a crucial element and component, not only for the customer which are existing in portfolio, but we will have the new open window for the new acquisition.
Okay, and beautiful design. I don't know if you see our dark mode. Probably we are
I'm the biggest fan of the dark mode in your app. In my own version only with the dark
probably
mode.
the second. I don't know, but probably only the other bank is delivering the dark mode. I don't know what application you're using. Probably most of you are using Credit Agricole, not maybe from today, but you will see that there is no such a mode, dark mode. We delivered beautiful. I'm really proud of it, and I don't know. Maybe Albert also will tell you something about it, but we are very proud of this dark mode, which is beautiful.
Yes, indeed. You'll have a chance on the big screen to click through the app. So during the break, feel invited. Yes, and that will also be an opportunity because you can say that the dark mode is just some fancy feature. But since there are more and more clients in the market, customers that are mobile only, those fancy features indeed play the role, right, in customer acquisition.
Crucial one. Yes, because banking is very, how to say, mature market. You cannot compete of the pricing of the number of products or type of the products because everybody have the same. That means that you need to diversify and to have something what will be more interesting, and this design, this features can be something attract new customer to us.
Right, and we all know that the Flutter is that like there's a very big promise in Flutter that Flutter provides an ability to create beautiful design, beautiful screens. But this is like one advantage of the Flutter. However, I guess it was not so obvious for you in the very beginning to to go for Flutter, right? Like more than 1 year ago. How this decision was taken?
Okay. So it was a tough decision. We already discussed it in Polish, but I'll tell you that we have the several reasons just to double check whether the Flutter is responding and is whether the risk that we already seen we can mitigate. And one of the most important thing for us just to prove was the proof of concept that we did with the 3 separate companies, and we believe that it will work, and indeed it worked, because during the weekend we got the running application mode. So, and
it was indeed a weekend.
Yes, Łukasz remember, but we will double check. We check not only with LeanCode, we check with the other Flutter developers, and this was the proof that we had fantastic technology responding for our needs. The smoothness of the application, responsiveness, this was something that we proved because we were told that to some extent the native application is better because it's the difference. One thing I would like to mention in that point, we during the time that we made the decision, there was a big problem, let's say, issue with this shaders. I don't know if you remember, probably yes. We had a big issue with the shaders. During the decision we made, we know that the shader issue is not solved, but we believe that during the time, the community, that something will happen that will fix the situation. And yes, it is fixed. Now we have the other issue. You know what is the other issue that everybody is claiming and is not fixed? It is this is Flutter thing, hot. Stroboscope. Do you know what is stroboscope? This is the application that is...
Agnieszka can share what is the stroboscope.
So this is something which is open, and we know that this is the bug in Flutter. To some extent, it touches the customers, but we are living with that, and we believe that in the future we will get the community to get it done. Yes. So these are the elements that we faced, but in spite of that, we made the decision that yes, we are ready to take this risk and mitigate this risk.
Yes, but I think that in this analysis, we do not identify all the strengths on the Flutter. I think that now we are more stronger thinking that the list of the strengths of the Flutter for this type of the project is more longer than on the starting point.
But we see also some risk more.
Yes,
but
for sure.
We are just managing this. All advantages, disadvantages. It's more for us just to understand. We know more than a year before.
Definitely, and we'll see those learnings in a moment. Right, so perhaps the only last question, just to get rid of any ambiguity here. So if you have a chance to use the time capsule and go back a year ago when you're making the decision about the Flutter, would you say yes to Flutter again?
Yes.
Let me think.
No, for me it's obvious, yes.
Yes, obviously. Obviously, we believe that this is one of the most important technical decisions recently that we did in banking. We have the strategy which is called Accelerate. We need to find the business and technical acceleration method in order to overpass and to reach this top 3 application. And we could choose, I would say, standard native application, doubling the effort and so forth. But we made the decision that there is something that will speed up, accelerate our business, and this Flutter was the answer for that need.
Yes, I think that it is more important that we are still in this capsule, and when we had this decision in front of us, that was, okay, if we can do the jump to the future, and the Flutter give us this possibility, yes, because we are still small bank, this kind of the big investment is not every year possible for us. That means that we need to find the technology which will give us the booster for the future. And I think that the Flutter gives us
but
this
without
booster.
Growing community, without commitment of your development, our strategy will not be delivered so fast. So we believe that the Flutter world will grow and you will reach
Yes, and we
top.
have the
So this
examples
is our
that
deliveries.
some of developers, not Flutters, was growing with their competence in our project, and now they are starting the Flutter development too. That means that for sure it is interesting for the different type of the development.
Right, and for the community, so as we're here. Right, so perhaps let's open the stage to the questions from the audience. If you want to ask something else about the business perspective, the decision-making process. Any volunteers here in the audience?
Thank you.
You mentioned about that you are creating a new app for some internal usage, and are you doing this in the Flutter for web or Flutter for mobile?
Currently, Flutter for mobile. We are thinking about how to implement safely, step by step, because we know what are the limitations of the Flutter for the web. We know what are the differences, that this is not the user experience as is on the standard web. So we did not make the decision. We are just trying to find, I would say, good business case to start with something which is small. And then when we make the proof, then we will grow up. So still ahead of us decision. I'm personally a fan of it, but we are just currently, in terms of the business, we are just focusing on the mobile right now.
Yes, that's why, for example, we are not going with the development of our existing e-bank, because we are thinking that it's better to wait for this technology decision and maybe have some proof of concept before we will go for the redevelopment of our e-bank.
Okay, and are you reusing some modules code from this app for retail customers in this new app, or you are writing from the scratch in Flutter?
We did it completely from scratch. There was some, I would say, SDKs, already native codes that we need to incorporate into the banking application, especially that they were connected with some, I would say, value-added services. Especially when we are talking about the first process when you just onboard the customer, so you open the new account, there is a specific dedicated services that we had to integrate into the which is native one. But the rest is purely Flutter, and we start from the scratch, both from the design perspective and from the development.
Okay, but I'm asking about this second app. So when you are starting this second app, are you reusing some code, or?
In terms of the backend, yes. In terms of backend, yes. But in terms of the frontend, no. We didn't get any because it was a native code, and in fact we didn't use this native application.
But I'm asking about those apps for advisors. Not for retail. So you have the app for retail customers done in Flutter, and you are starting a new project in Flutter for advisors. Are you reusing something or not? Or
no, for the moment, no.
Okay, so thank you.
Right. Anybody else?
Did you looking for comments on the App Store and Play Store?
Yes, this is something which is very important for us. And we observed that once we deployed the new application, this was, I would say, every half an hour we just checked what is the comment and what is how many stars we have. We are taking seriously what is in comments. We really appreciate these comments, and from these comments, we thought that there are at least features that we just put on the list, on the backlog, somewhere in the bottom. Right now, we are just improving it on that. One thing I would like to tell you about the new application, but probably you know, but maybe some of them did not experience it. Once you have the new application and you will make something which is a small mistake during the night, you will be punished immediately. So this is our impression.
When you score in the...
Yes, and then immediately the numbers, the scores went down. You need to be very careful at the very beginning once you deploy the application, and you really fight for the number of stars, which is giving you the deploy.
Yes, but the situation with the score now is not stable because we are still transforming customers. Yes, we have 38,000 na dziś. I think that we have the active user, yes, but more than 1 million logging after 1 month. And for sure, we are motivated customer to give us the marks. For sure, we have our internal customer which are giving us the marks. That's why this not the real one yet. We think that we have in front of us the migration of the existing active portfolio, and after this we will see, yes, what is the feedback. But for sure, having in this business ambition to be top CRI, we are contacting every customer with the negative opinion very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the last question, and there will be an opportunity to have
Yes,
more
one
questions
question.
during the networking part.
Thanks for the presentation, very insightful. Thanks guys for sharing all of the knowledge you've gathered. I got 2 questions. So first question is, have you managed to see the change in the conversions to share of sales of financial products within the user base that is using the new app? So what I'm wondering is whether the sale of the loans or the other financial products increase
Not yet.
with the new app?
I can answer. Okay. Not yet, because you have a 1 month, not full portfolio transformed, that what you can compare. For today, nothing.
Okay.
For sure, we will do it when we will have transformation for the whole existing portfolio, and we will compare the results for the new acquisition and for the new customers. That this exercise to check if it's our business case can be delivered for this project is still in front of us. That we think that we will do it next year, because still we have the big implementation of the MVP 2 in front of us. That's why we not check the business results and compare them yet.
Okay. And the second question would be the MVP 2. What are the features you guys are going to implement? I'm wondering whether you've already thought about, for example, doing the buy now, pay later in-house, just like PKO Bank Polski recently released the information that they're doing their in-house buy now, pay later feature, and whether you're doing like subscription management and stuff. I'm wondering what are the features for the MVP 2 in line. Would be awesome to hear about.
2 key elements will be Google search, because we still not have the search.
Global
which,
search. This is
global,
the idea of
yes,
Google
sorry.
search. So we
Yes.
would like to make the customer just to, I'm just making some information. Just to type it, and then you have all the search all around the application, including not only transactions, but all the features. Like in Google, you will see everything. So this is I would say, next steps in terms of delivering the better user experience. So this is one of the elements that we believe still something that is to be done, in fact, and in terms of functionality.
And we will have the PFM. We are cooperating with the company Kriv, may be known on the Polish market. That is the Strands from the Hiszpania. Sorry, that we will have the PFM delivered, and that will be new component in the navigation.
But all the features that you already mentioned, yes, we have on the backlog, yes.
Yes, but the new processes for the selling of the products we plan to deliver next year, because we are waiting for the delivery of the backend system, which is now changing in the bank. That's why that was not possible to design and deliver new process if the backend will be changed. Yes, that's why we are more concentrating still of the basic functionality with this search and PFM, but not with the new processes for selling products.
And of course, in the future, something which is non-banking transactions, non-banking operations, non-banking products, but very present in current business. I mean, the parking, the motorways, and so on. So
highways,
highways.
yes.
So this is something which we believe is expected by the customers. Once we would like to be on top 3, everything which is on that level should be delivered.
Yes, and in the process of opening current account, because now in the new mobile app we have the process of opening current account, because at the past we have 2 apps separate. We will have the upgrade to use the e-dowód for the identification.
So in order to speed up the process, make it more friendly. Łukasz is coming, so...
Right, yes. So I'm keeping an eye on the time and time boxing, so I think like we will need to move all our questions to the networking part or during the break, which we'll have after the next talk. So thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, and Matti.
That's correct. And with that said, exactly, we would now like to welcome Jakub Fiałkowski and Mateusz Wojczak on the stage, who are going to tell us about building Flutter apps at scale. And trust me, this talk is going to be amazing. You're going to learn a lot. So especially if you're on the stream, stick around. And one big round of applause for the speakers.
Cool.
Okay, can you hear me well?
And me? Yeah.
Okay, so hi, welcome to Flutter at Scale, the talk about how we build a large-scale mobile banking app for Crédit Agricole with over 20 Flutter developers and over 200 people involved in the project using Flutter framework. This talk is going to be not so deep into code. It's more about how to manage this whole project, but you're going to see us sharing our thoughts and experience from our year-long journey with Crédit Agricole. We are a bit late, and we have, I think, over 100 slides. So excuse us, and we will try to be as quick as possible. And after the talk, in the break, and also in the networking part, we will be more than happy to answer all the questions about it. So we will elaborate for you everything that you want. So let's go. I'm Mateusz, and I'm head of mobile at LeanCode. You probably know me because I'm one of the co-founder of Flutter Warsaw, also co-organizing with Maciej on the live streams. Been with Flutter since the early beta.
And I'm Jacob, aka Fiałek. I'm head of backend at LeanCode, but for the duration of the Crédit Agricole banking app, I was doing mobile full-time.
Okay, so let's set some terms first. What it means for us that we delivered a large project, what it means for a project to be small or large. So small projects for us are approximately projects that you do for 2 months with 2 people, typically. So in this type of projects, you know almost every piece of code when you are a developer. Also, you got similar business knowledge to your friend that is your coworker on the project. Probably there is a big chance that also a backend developer also sits by your side, so you can communicate with them instantly in real world. And you don't have to care about that. So what are large projects? There is code that you have never seen after a year, probably, and it's completely normal. You, for example, work on loans. We are now talking in banking business domains. So, for example, you've been working on loans, but you don't know anything about Loyalty Club, and you may even not know that Loyalty Club was there, but it was like over a year or something like that, but you are on the loan team, so you are only focused on one business domain. There's hundreds of people involved, and each of them work in a different way. So we are talking not only about developers, we are talking about business people, product owners, about domain experts from banking that typically work in whole different workflow, and they don't know what agile is and what software development practices are, and so on and so on. Or some people like translators who don't even know what you do in your day-to-day basis at work. So let's tame it. What was our project? We still have over 20 Flutter developers in over 10 squads. So I will not elaborate on that because Tomek already said. 2 special squads most of the squads are focused on delivering business value in their own respective business domains. And 2 squads are special in here, so it's squad number 1, overall design. Albert will talk about that. And platform and framework, squad number 13. This was me and Fiołek among the squad, also other people. And it was the squad that had some kind of overseeing the technical side of our project. So just to remind, over 200 people involved in the project. Okay, so let's deliver it. So how can we deliver a large project? So we divided it into 10 chapters. I don't like agendas, but people say that you always have to have an agenda, so you have an agenda in here. Okay, so there are 10 key concepts that helped us deliver, but there are no silver bullets, and I think that everyone who is a developer also knows that here, that these just are things that helped us. They may help you, but they may not. So, you know, always think about it. Okay, so let's start from code ownership.
Yeah, and code ownership is seemingly a simple thing. In a small project, this is like normal. You contribute code to the code base, you own the repository, you are responsible for everything basically. You fix bugs there, you add new features, you maintain the code to conform to the newest standards, you basically own the code completely. But that might not be true in a project that is done by more than 20 Flutter developers at once, because we, in this app, had a single code base. We did create a single app in a single repository, and just extrapolating the rule that if you contribute code to the code base, you own the code base, it does not work, because if everyone is responsible for everything, then they will be responsible basically for nothing, because everyone will find some excuse to not maintain the code, because always there will be someone else that is better suited to fix bugs there, to add new functionality there, especially if they are not like used to contributing code there, or are like not liking this particular part of the code base. So in application of this size, you have to find some way to enforce code ownership. And we needed to find some boundaries there, but these boundaries basically means that we need to introduce explicit code ownership. We need to disallow this no man's land kind of thing that you have too many people seemingly responsible for the same code. You need to find some, like basically silver bullet, but maybe not silver bullet, to distribute the ownership across the company. Some ground rules before we jump into dividing the project into things that will work for us. Let's put some ground rules. And the first one is that every piece of code should be owned by a team, not by a single person. The team needs to be responsible for the code, because a person can change team, and if they change team, the knowledge of the code will go with them, but their new manager will probably don't want to have anything to do with the old code base. So you need to like preserve the responsibility for the code base to a team. And if we lose the responsibility, if a person leaves, for example, the code will be basically lost. But what do I mean by responsibility? Because that's crucial here. First and foremost, the team will maintain the code. And it means basically maintaining the code, but also maintaining the code in terms of business and keeping it up to date and fixing bugs there and developing new features there and doing everything that relates to the code. Not only coding, but all the necessary groundwork to keep it up to date. But it does not mean that they will be the only one allowed to contribute new code there. We still can allow anyone in the company to contribute new code there, but they are still responsible for the code, so they have the final word in accepting the code. And also, this is a rule that should not have exceptions. Although I'm quite pragmatic when it comes to the rules, this one, if broken, will result in very bad experience for all the involved. So, going back to boundaries, how to define them? In a small project, your boundary is basically the repository, the whole code base. You own the code base, and that's simple. In a mobile app done by 2 people in two months, it's like basically the whole app. When it comes to backend, this might be a microservice or something like that. But here, when we have more than 20 people involved, that's basically not possible. So we need to put some artificial boundaries, artificial walls. And for us, the thing that worked was to divide the project into packages, but not packages deployed to pub, published on pub, not packages split across multiple repo, just normal local packages in a single repository that you reference basically freely across different teams, and you can use whatever different team wants to be used. And this puts enough walls between teams so that you can have clear ownership, but the walls are not so high so that anyone that wants to see your code can see it by just clicking through your IDE. This is basically enough, and it does not introduce too many problems. But there's always some sith. There's always some form of common code. You have your API access standardized, you have standardized formatting, you have standardized validation logic, error handling, and whatnot. And this code is basically common because everyone wants something from it, and everyone needs to contribute to it because it will change between different teams, but you still want to have some standardization. And the other problem is that there needs to be a single entry point. So we will always have the app package, where you need to bootstrap your whole application. And it is also a place that everyone wants to contribute to, everyone has some say in it, but that's, like I said, you can't allow multiple ownership on a package. So they still need to be owned. We don't want multiple teams to own it, so we need to find someone. And for us, this was the technical team, the framework squad that was responsible for the code that no one else wants. And they were the ones that had the final say in accepting code to the application, as in the entry point of the application. And they, we, basically, had the final word in accepting new code to a common ground. But because at the end of the day, someone always has to be responsible. So we now know how to put the ownership on a code, but how to divide the code, really.
Okay, so let's go to the project structure. So we got our code ownership rules. We are going further into development of the project. We want to have some consistent project structure so that everyone across those 10+ squads know how we do things. So we can look at project structure in a lot of very different ways. And when we make our little pet project, it won't bite us soon. Even if it will, then still we are okay with that. And with large projects, we have to really overthink it because it's pretty hard to refactor. So project structure is something that is a bit controversial because you're probably accustomed to layers. This word is really popular. You've probably seen it a million times in different configurations, different meanings, and so on and so on. And about layering things, about layering your architecture, not only in mobile, but throughout whole software development. So let's look at this example. So we got 3 business domains in here, banking domains, transfers, loans, and benefits. So as you can see, we have some transfers page, our UI. We have some transfers qubit or some other state management to somehow make our application logic, our presentation logic, and we got some data source like transfers repository. So we have these 3 layers, and we call it like horizontal division at LeanCode, like at LeanCode, like we Fioek call it horizontal because it looks like horizontal. And as you can see, it's clear. It may be clear for us when we look at it to divide it in such packages like repositories package with all the repositories, application logic package with all the blocks and qubits and some business logic classes and all the UI in other package. But there is one significant question that Fioek already asked about ownership. So who owns the package? So let's try to answer it, right? And to answer it, we can remind ourselves with a famous aphorism that famous in software development that can really help us in a few situations, not only this one, and you will see it later. So it goes like this. Any organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. What is important here is that whatever we will do in our system, the structure of this system, of this project, will be a copy of structure of communication. So, okay, if it's true, let's not fight it. Let's try to relate our situation to this. And let's remind, we have more than 200 people involved in the project. So how do we communicate in this agile squads, as Tomek and Kasia said, in this agile seamless tribe? How do we communicate on a daily basis? And daily is a keyword here, actually, because is there a repository squad daily? Not at all. Is there a data source daily, UI daily, something like that? No, it's like unnecessary, and no one would think about it, actually. But actually, there's a payment squad daily, lending squad daily, value-added services squad daily, because there are payments business experts, people from the other side of company that depend on us, often people from other companies that we depend on, or they depend on us, just because we are all connected to one business domain. So it's really business domain driven. It's all about payments in our squad. So we have payment squad daily. So let's try to project our communication model onto our code. So let's try to make it in a different way, orthogonal to that. So let's try to do this vertical division. So the same classes, because this is the same code. It's only the matter of communication and organizing things. So let's make let's try to make transfers package with all the stuff that is related to transfers, loans package that is only related to loans, and so on and so on and so on. Now, if I am looking at that code, I know who I can turn to about this code because it's owned by that squad, and I can just find people from that squad and just connect with them and get knowledge I was looking for. So actually there might be a couple more, like you can have a couple of packages per squad, why not? The one thing that is important, and Fioek already emphasized, is to have one owner of the package. So you can own many packages, but the package can be only owned by one squad. Okay, so let's actually start working on the project. We made a lot of decisions, and we didn't even start writing the code. So we start the project but after first week, when 15 squads start their work, they want to code, people are ready and hungry for making those business value. And we got minimum, like at least 15, 20 packages in our repository according to that division. So we look at this. This is just like, I don't think a half, maybe less than a half of packages or something like that. And let's think about, for example, running tests in every package that has tests, or format code in every package that we want to based on some filter that we want to apply. it's really cumbersome and it's really depressing. So let's define what actually we want to do. We want to run things in a multi-package environment. We want a task runner because there is already a thing for that, and it's called task runner. So we want a task runner, and it would be really nice if this task runner would work well with Dart. And actually, there is such a thing, and it's called Melos by Invertase, and really recommend it. We use it in Crédit Agricole. It's basically a tool for managing Dart projects with multiple packages. So you just can run Flutter test in all the packages that actually have test directory, because otherwise you will get some errors because you don't have tests in that package and so on and so on. And it's really making things easier when you have a lot of packages. So it doesn't have to be Melos. It's just we need a task runner, right? And we had scripts for running pubget, cleaning, running some localization scripts, testing, also reconciling dependency versions to be sure that we have the same versions of some packages across the code, formatting, analyzing, running build runner, right, where applicable. So you know what I mean. So TLDR is you need a task runner. Okay, so we can start coding, but how do we communicate across squads?
Yeah, we have our multiple packages. We know who to turn to if I need a card or I need an account or I need do a transfer. But I know who to turn to. I don't know how to make a transfer. They only know that, and we need some way to ask them or make them do it inside the app. Because if we have 10+ business teams, business squads that are basically covering different verticals of the app, there can't be a place where there isn't a world where you have 10 totally separate features. There will be places where you need data from other teams, and there will be actions that you do that will invalidate data in other teams. For example, when we have the basic feature, the transactions list, there is a filters there, and one of the filters is a card selector. So we can filter the transactions list by card. So what transactions did you do with this particular card? So, but you're just managing transactions. You don't know a thing about cards, but you still need to display them because you own the screen, and you need to display it. So you need to ask the card squad to give you the cards. And the other way around, when I'm making a transaction, I probably need to authorize it. So I probably need someone else to do the authorization because I'm just making a transaction. I'm not doing the authorization process. And when I did already the transaction, I probably want to say to someone that I did the transaction because I know that somewhere in the app there's a balance of the account displayed, and I need them to update the balance because I just made a transaction. So we need to communicate in code. And as I said, with these examples, there are basically 3 cases. And one is that I need some data right away. I need it now. I need the cards list now. I need someone else to do something right now, like I need to authorize this transaction. And the third one is that I did something. I did the transaction, and I know that probably someone will want to know that I did the transaction, but I don't really care if what happens, when it happens, and who does it. So these 3 cases can be then divided into 2 groups, basically. The synchronous one, so something is done right away, and asynchronous one, where something happens, but I don't care when or what. And this is basically our solution to this problem. We know that we have 3 cases that we need to cover, and we probably need some escape hatch if we just underanalyzed and there is something else that needs to be tackled. And our solution is based on something that we called facades. And the first one is synchronous one, the one that gives the data or does something right away. And it's must follow in our code base 2 rules. The first one is if we want to expose some data, we want to expose them as streams. Not normal, like ordinary stream controller streams, probably the ones based on behavior subject. Because we want the teams that consume this stream to know that the data is there. And we want to hide the intricate details of getting the data or handling errors from the teams that use the data. We want to just give them the data. And the other point is handled just by methods. Ordinary methods with like free signatures, you can put there whatever you like. This is our escape hatch if we need to do something differently, if we need to do some action somewhere, because you can't basically constrain everything, and too many constraints will result in like basically bad code. So we handled our synchronous case, and then we have the asynchronous case, where we need to inform the world that something happened. And we do so also with streams, but streams of events. Event is something that is basically a domain thing that you want the world to know about. In case of transactions, it's like transaction made, payment made, whatever you call it, that just covers the basic data of the transaction, so source account, destination account, and the amount of the transaction. And we also expose it as streams, but now like normal stream controller-based streams where you just publish the event, and if it's not handled right away, if someone is not listening for the event, it will just disappear because you don't want the event to be persisted, you don't want to do anything because the main purpose of these events is to just update some UI, probably. But I lied a little bit. These 3 cases are not the only one. There's also a navigation.
Yes, so navigation is also a form of cross-squad communication, since we have to probably navigate throughout the whole app, and there will be a lot of cases when we want to navigate from basically one squad's page to another squad's page. So how did we approach it? It is a cross-squad communication, and it has the same constraints of code ownership as we said earlier. So let's try to relate to that, and let's describe the challenges we have in here. So we want to have cross-squad navigation. We want to be able to pass context data with navigation to the targets, so that I want to, for example, navigate to this particular account details. We want to be able to have pages that contain elements from multiple squads. For example, as you will be able to see in the second room, where there will be the app live running on the screen, you will see that the main dashboard of the application is basically the screen that contains elements from, like, I think half the squads or something like that in the domain matter. So we have to be able to do that. Also, it would be really nice to nest navigation. It's not so crucial, but it would be nice. And deep linking, this is really important, because in the world of marketing people, there will be a day in the project when they will come and say, hey, I want to send some push notification that basically takes you from one place in the app to some other, and I would like to go everywhere that I want to. So let's make some navigation solution that allows us to do anything we want. And we can hope that they won't come, but we know deeply in our hearts that they will come one day, and they will be really excited to push this solution on us. Okay, so our solution is just to, in our case, what was enough for us, it was just a thin abstraction layer above Flutter navigation, because Flutter navigation is cool, and why reinvent the wheel? It's okay, and we have to use that, and there's nothing wrong with Flutter navigation, but we also have to apply our code constraints, code ownership, and so on, so that we don't have to break our rules just to use Flutter Navigator. So we made a thin abstraction layer over that. As you can see, we have some app navigator and we can navigate to some target, and we introduce the word target to something abstract that it's not connected, as like this term is not connected to some implementation, it's just connected to our intent to go to some wealth page. And also we can pass some data, why not, because it's strongly typed. We really love strongly typed systems at LeanCode. You will see it in next chapters also. And on the other side, it's really pretty straightforward and simple. On the other side, in private squads, because the targets are common for everyone, because everyone has to have access in code to every target in the app, so we can navigate throughout the whole app. But we don't want to know, and we don't want to be able to pick how and abuse the knowledge that we know, how it's implemented in some other squad. So we basically move the implementations that we, for example, call page builders to private squad packages, so that if I'm in a different squad, I can't abuse it and I can't introduce more corruption. But like in the deep, it's actually just using material pages, material navigators, and so on and so on, and it's pretty simple. What were the trade-offs? Because there are always some trade-offs. The pros is the separation of consents, because we wanted to separate the targets from implementations and just be able to set this abstract term, I want to go somewhere, and so that targets are defined in a navigation package, CABP navigation, that it's that every other package can depend on, and I don't have to explicitly depend on accounts or or loans, because I actually, in the business way, I don't depend on them. I just want to have a way to move there. I don't depend on their data or something like that. Strongly typed target arguments, as I said, and since it's our abstraction layer, we can, to make things easier or make some shortcuts, we can also make it available without context. But the cons are that private squad types cannot be used in targets, since CABP navigation package can't depend on other private packages, because it would, end up in transitive dependency from our loans to, for example, benefits club, and our loans package, we don't want it to be related to that other package, so we cannot use private squad types. This is the one bad side. And also, since every abstraction is leaky, as Joel Spolsky, the creator of Stack Overflow, said in his law of abstractions, every abstraction is leaky, and this abstraction also leaks, so we cannot do everything that Flutter Navigator can, because we just constrained ourselves. But it's okay, because we don't expose it to the rest of Flutter world or something. We don't make some general navigation package. We just make navigation packages related only to our Crédit Agricole domain. So actually, we can change that abstraction if we want to, and if it's really needed. So it's actually not so much of a bad thing. Okay, so hindsight is 2020. In Polish we say mądry Polak po szkodzie. But navigation is very expensive to change later, since it's this, red area that affects every single squad, every single developer, and there's a lot of refactoring that's not really, how to say it, not really pleasant to do, and we have to have that in the back of our heads. So consider using some navigation package like GoRouter or just some navigation package, and just check for yourself if it's okay, and if it's not, and if you need some constraints, just make some thin abstraction layer over that and constrain yourselves. But you don't have to reinvent the whole navigation to constrain yourself. So yeah, consider that and have that in your head. So the next big topic, as we said in the agenda, after the communication, is localization, because banking apps typically offer more than one language, one locale, because it's not only about languages, and also there's an amazing talk about it from Albert Wolszon from Flutter Warsaw. And localization is really important. What does it mean to localize things? Basically, I think that probably all of you know, but just to remind, we all have some values that are statically defined throughout the whole application. For example, some strings, get to know Crédit Agricole, available funds, go to store, and so on and so on. We want to be able to put it in some specific locale of the user's device, or of their own choice. So we have over 5,500 strings to localize in our app, spread across more than 12 squads, and spread across developers, product owners, business people, translators, and this gives us a hunch that it's not a developer thing anymore, because it's not only affecting us developers, it affects a lot of people in the project. And we need a single source of truth for that, because we also always need a single source of truth for everything in every kind of domain, not only programming. Like our blessed Jira tool, that I think everyone has opinion on Jira, maybe bad, maybe good, but we have to have some kind of Jira to, work with each other. And also with localization, we would like to have this single source of truth, but we have to ask ourselves, is it owned by business or development, like localization? Because for us, it's more owned by people that define it, and that people that define how things are localized, what is localized and what's not localized, what needs to be formatted in such a way, like money, or in every locale you can have different separators and commas and so on and so on. It's really, really difficult. And it's actually not even a developer thing, it's just a thing that exists in many different locales, and it's actually related more to business and to people that are related to that domain than as developers. So we can't use source code as the truth, we can only relate in the code to the truth, we can project the truth in the code. So we also want to use ARB files, the Flutter blessed way of localizing things. We want to use Flutter localizations. We want to be as Flutter as possible, and so on and so on. We want to use all the good things. So we want some tool, and actually, don't worry, I know that probably most of you already know that, but there is already a tool for that. And it's called Translation Management System. And there are a lot of this type of tools. We used Phrase in Crédit Agricole. As you can see, this is just a web interface for Phrase, and you can see that we have more than 5,000 results, and we have some terms, some translations, some context of that. We can add screenshots, we can add description, tags, comments, track activity, and so on and so on. So it's a whole different domain, and you wouldn't even think that you can do such many things with strings. So as a developer, what do we want? We want to be able to easily synchronize whenever business needs it. So just my product owner comes to me and tells me, hey, download new localizations because I changed the strings. And I want to say, yeah, of course, it's super easy. I can just download it, make a pull request, and go back to actual work, and not because they will come after half an hour and say, hey, I made a typo with a comma, so do it again. So yeah, I want to just synchronize easily. So TMS is for that. And TMS, all of TMS tools have features like review workflow for translators, placeholders support, plural support, versioning, so we can keep track of versions of some strings. Also, some of them have some branching systems, so we can put the whole versions of all the localizations. But also translation memory for our translators, because translators are really used to have translation memory, because they work, for example, for Crédit Agricole, and they made already a couple of projects with Credit Agricole. And for example, if we use some term like loan or to borrow, to lend, they already have translations for that that already had been approved, with native speakers, with business people, and so on and so on. So they want to have that. They want to have the glossaries, tagging, and so on and so on. That's why we need a separate tool. And just to look at it from phrase, you can see that the whole advanced review workflow is really complex, and the developer is only a small part of that. That's why it's not owned by us, but other people. And very important thing, check out the trial version first, because every TMS tool is different, and it's really easy to slip on that like on a banana peel, really. So don't pay until you are really sure that it works with your, especially Flutter ARBs. It can be really painful. Okay, so let's go to another thing from our agenda, automatic UI tests.
Yeah, we know how to build the app, or at least parts of the app, and now we want to know how to test it. And we all know that tests are great. UI tests are great, and they allow you to simplify like a repetitive testing. They allow you to lessen the number of regression bugs. They give you instant feedback or semi-instant feedback about existing features in the app that you might inadvertently broken in the meantime. But in Flutter world, we have like the de facto solution for that, and it's combination of Flutter driver for Flutter parts and Appium for the native ones, and it's all orchestrated by Appium. But it works, but it's kinda works. It has its problems. It's not so ergonomic to use, and it has it is quite powerful, but it has one big problem. You need to have keys to identify widgets in the app. And because probably your testers team is a separate team, probably in different department, you have to have a procedure to add the keys, because you either have to key every widget in your app, or you don't do it and you just want to be told what keys to add. But after you finished your feature, you probably don't have time to add the keys. So it's like a broken cycle. Testers require keys to write the tests, but developers don't have time to add them. So you don't have UI tests, and as we all know, UI tests are great. So to solve this, you basically have to have UI tests as part of your Scrum team. They need to work along with you. The testers need to work with you. And they have to have the same goals. So UI tests have to be part of the acceptance criteria of every user story. You need to force that on your teams, because that's the only way to make it work. Otherwise, someone will have problems with making them, or you will basically have broken tests all the time, because something will change and your tests will not change with them. The other thing that I want to tell you about today is contracts, something that's maybe not simple, but it's everywhere in apps. And probably in every app there is some kind of JSON API. This might be REST, it might be REST-ish, it might be RESTful, it might be GraphQL, it might be anything in between. But every kind of API has the same requirements, the same problems. So the API needs to be understood both by the creators, so the backend team, and the consumers, so the mobile developers. And also the API needs to be discoverable, easily discoverable. The mobile team, the Flutter developers should not ask each and every time the backend team what request to use to fulfill some basic need of the user. And probably to make it more ergonomic, you need to enforce flows. You need to have a way to tell the mobile team, the mobile devs, to make a second request after the first one because something else needs to happen. You sometimes don't want to do it, and it's better to have a single request, but sometimes you have to do it, and there are some other reasons so that it splits. So you need a way to enforce that. And probably your API should follow standards, and the standards needs to be the same across different teams, different squads, both in terms of how the API looks and how it is consumed. There are currently multiple ways to document and define the API. One of the standards is on OpenAPI or GraphQL, and you can use that, but sometimes that's an overkill. And sometimes it's better to come up with something that you own, you as a project own. And in our case, we used something that probably we called strongly typed contracts. So you basically, since backend designs the API, they serve the request, they have the most business knowledge when it comes to the flows that they need to do in other systems. They write their requests, they write the structure of requests, they write the handlers. They know what kind of security they need to enforce, they know what they can show you and what not to show you. Then lets them write not only the handlers and the types, the request definitions, let them write everything. And by write everything, I don't mean to write it manually. Let's generate Dart clients, but Dart clients not based on OpenAPI or GraphQL. Dart clients based directly on the backend code that they already written, they have to write before they write the handlers. Let's use that. Let not use anything in between. So in our case, every endpoint, every request looked basically like that. So we have a Dart class that extends some kind of request. We know what it will result, what the result will be. We know what it takes, we know what type of data it takes, and we can use just the type system to guide us on how to use the request and what flow we have. And we basically, during the initial time in the project, during the start of the project, we sat with the backend team and decided what the Dart client will look like, and now they are just generating the clients for us without our intervention whatsoever. It's not a silver bullet because you need to write the generator. You need to you need to come up with the design that you really want, and you will probably need to tweak it along the way. You still need to tackle versioning of the API. It's JSON underneath somewhere, so you still need to conform to that. Sometimes the types might not work, but it's still a gigantic net plus because sometimes it's better to reinvent the wheel. And sometimes it's better to make it work the way you want to. And at LeanCode, both in terms of UI tests and strongly typed contracts, we have something for you. We're building something that might help here. So talk with us, please, after the presentation to learn more.
OK, so let's go further, because we are short on time. And let's discuss the last, maybe not last, but yeah, the last thing. We've been developing the app already for a while, for example, a couple of months, all thinking about the release coming sooner and sooner, and we have to cope with a couple of things. We have to cope with the fact that your code is already legacy after you committed it. And it's inevitable, it's true, you cannot avoid it, but you can tame it. So especially when you have a lot of developers that are changing, that business features are changing, and everything is really changing around us, we have to consider that. Because business assumptions change, and this is one of the first reasons why Agile movement happened and all the Scrum methodology, because business assumptions change continuously and will change even more, and we can cope with that. And one thing, I think the most important thing that the takeaway for us was to deprecate things. And if we notice that we can do things in a bit different way, and we cannot do things in old way because something happened, something changed, that it's not straight not from our side, but maybe from our dependency, like business or some other things that happen in the project, we have to tell everyone, hey, let's deprecate it. And Dart has this feature of deprecated annotation, so we can do it. Pretty much every language has tools for that. And it is annoying. It was really annoying for me when Albert from the design squad deprecated a lot of UI components because designers had a different idea for that and a different idea for doing such things and so on and so on. But it's really a blessing, and I would really, I can thank him now. I thank you, Albert, because it's really, really helpful. It's really a blessing for the whole team. But really make sure you do. Make sure you do, because if we don't play by the rules, why even make rules? We have to obey the rules that we create by ourselves. So how to really make sure? We can organize weekly status meetings and keep track. So that's why we have technical squad, to provide a group of people that nobody likes and that is accountable for things that everyone has to do. And because still somebody must own it, like Fioek said in the beginning. So let's own this sad thing of reminding people, hey, it's deprecated and you have to really, really fix that and not use that. And like you have a week, and in a week we will make a status meeting and check if you really don't use deprecated things anymore. So synchronize across squads on a regular basis, and this is important not only with deprecations, with everything. Without that, I think we couldn't do anything in a group of more than 20 people. Really, it would be a huge chaos, and because a lot of things that we wanted to tell you with this talk is that with so many people, you will have to accept that it will introduce corruption across code, project organization, communication, and so on. But it's okay, we have to accept that. But hey, we can think, how can we constrain it? How can we put it in our own rules? And this whole presentation is about it. How to tame this scale. And this is Flutter at scale. And the last but not least is the design system. Because you remember Conway's law. The communication is also in design, inconsistencies in design across the app, propagate to code, propagate to corruption in our code, to things that a year later would end up in making the whole Crédit Agricole app inconsistent. We cannot allow that, right? We have to think how to constrain it. And that's why we have a talk about design system today, right after the break from Albert Wolszon. All right, thank you very much. Have you got any questions? We need Łukasz or someone who would be the moderator.
So, I see a question.
So I have mainly two questions. I don't know how much time we have, so maybe I'll just skip the less interesting one. Yeah, so my main question is, you mentioned that you split your code base into packages, and you have this central package for navigation, or rather for targets.
For abstraction of navigation, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if Dart or Pub handles circular dependencies between packages. So did you maybe have any issues with this? And did you have to, how did you overcome it or something like that?
I think, yes, we actually had something like that. And that's why we introduced the facades, because we didn't say it in here. It will be in the ebook, because there will be elaboration of all the things that we said. We split the packages into private and public. For example, if you had CABP lending package that it's in its own business domain, then we don't want to depend on that. But if we want to really depend business-wise on this squad, on lending squad, we create another package that is, for example, CABP lending public, that it's only for people, a code that depends on it, and then we can. It's, I think, the simplest way to break the circle in circular dependency. Just extract the things that you would like. The interface, yeah, the abstraction, the interface, because you are a lending squad, and you can say, and you can define what from the lending domain should be used by other people. And for those things, push it to this public interface, because the internals and how do we do loans and lending is our thing, and you can't depend on that because it would provide corruption. And for example, one of the things of corruption is circular dependencies. So we just push it to some public interface and allow people to use this public interface in any way that they want to, because it's still our way and still under our control. I think I don't know if it answers the questions.
Yes, it does. So let me just jump into the next one. Does your app work offline at all? And if yes, what did you use to persist the data?
I'm not sure. It works a bit, but in general, you cannot do much banking when you are offline. I think that you can see that you are already logged in. Okay, maybe Fiołek did more.
Yeah, there is a single feature that works offline, and you can like authorize transactions done in the e-bank on the web with offline mobile application. You scan the QR code that your mobile app is able to decode and generate the OTP token to authorize the app. But that's, I think, the only place that really works offline.
Maybe more. Sorry if we skipped something, but yeah, basically it's okay for us right now, because you know, the domain of banking is you have to be connected most of the times.
Okay, I'll skip the boring question. Thank you.
You can ask it after the break.
Yes. Since we are short on time, I'm going to just go for one more question. Okay.
So I have a question about security, because both presentations, I think, skipped both a lot of it. And I thought that in banking there is a lot of like money in security and all that stuff.
Yes.
So how much like attention did you pay to the security, and what did you do in this area?
It's okay. I think that I will elaborate that after. But I can only say right now, to be short in time, that you are a client. When you are a mobile app, you are a client, a front end. So the majority of security of the system has to be done on the other side of the system. But you can self-protect. And actually there is a term of that. It's called runtime application self-protection. It's RASP. And it's a set of terms that it's mostly defined by OWASP organization, that it's known for people that are into security, and they have this mobile testing guide and all the guidelines. How can we self-protect against some malicious actions? But it's always about running after the rabbit and escaping the rabbit and so on and so on. If you get my metaphor, it's not real security. It's more like being able to hide better, but that's what I think security in front-end apps is all about. Because you cannot take someone else's money from our app, because backend system wouldn't allow that. Yeah, but you can self-protect from such things as injecting some code, skipping some security. Routing protection, but also routing protection cannot be 100% perfect, because since you are the root, you can tell me that you are not root, right? So it's always about insecurity. I think I'm not an expert in that, but it's the most important thing is that me as a mobile app to not be able to change your money, for example, right?
Breaking the rules if I answer.
No, not at all.
Thank you. So the answer is simple, because the way how we are just approaching the securities is managed in a different way. And Mateusz already mentioned about the way how we are just dealing the security on my mobile application. So the RASP and the OWASP is something which is very important for us. So there are several things that during the implementation you do the wrapping of the application, and several things are double checked. So once you have the, I would say, rooted mobile device, you are not allowed to run the application. So this is one of the example. And that's why we believe that having the application very connected to to being connected, I mean to the server, and all the application is secured by the backend side, there is much more security. That's why we are not investing much more in the, I would say, storing the data on the mobile application. We are just very relying on the security. We did several security tests. We asked many companies, not only one, but for doing the pen testing. We also have the backend for the application, which is very related to the previous version of the application. So the much of the code on the backend side is, I would say, still tested, validated, and so on, so on. So this is how we approach on the backend side and on the frontend side.
Okay, so when it comes to Flutter, there is not much you actually like did more than just, you didn't have to do anything
obfuscation,
special.
I guess, obfuscation and splitting debug information, certificate pinning in terms of networking. So you have to somehow inject your things of doing in a networking stack. But it's all about being obscure more. And about Rasp, we can talk later about actually what Rasp is. But the most of things in Rasp is pretty native. But you know, Flutter app is also a native app, right? So you can do all those things. Yeah, pretty much, yes. Also, you are in ARM native code, so you have a couple of things easier maybe, since you don't have virtual machine. I don't know, maybe in terms of Flutter. I think obfuscation and splitting debug info and certificate pinning are the most crucial things that you can do on the Dart side.
Okay,
maybe I forgot about something. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All of you again.
So much for the question. Also, thank you to Tomek for clarifying it even more.
Yeah, so thank you all, and thanks for the presentation.
I absolutely loved the presentation. I'm sure you did too. So now is the time for a 15 minutes break, or maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So if you're on the stream, definitely stick around, go to have a break too. We're going to move to the other room where we have even beers. We can start even now, although definitely leave something for later. Don't consume everything just now. And just to make sure that everybody knows where the restroom is, it's right over there. It's not signed, but like just go up to there and you're gonna find it. All right, so let's have a break, everyone.
we're even to the people online. We are about to continue with the third and the last talk, which will be about design. But before that, I would like to remind you that you can still scan this QR code and sign up and line up for the ebook, which will be published quite soon. That will go in depth about what's being talked at this meetup. So just scan it and you can wait and sign up for when the ebook is released. All right, we'll just wait for a bit more for people to get seated. Okay, I think I'll leave those people be where they are right now. So, with that said, I would like to welcome Albert Wolszon on the stage. Here he is. And Albert will tell you quite a lot about design systems in a large Flutter app from the developer's perspective.
Okay, you can hear me. Hey, good evening, everyone. I see that some of you already have a beer, LeanCode branded. Hope you like it. So, my name is Albert Wolszon, and this is my talk called Design System in a Large Flutter App from the developer's perspective. Let's start with my introduction. So, I'm 21, currently based in Warsaw. I'm a Flutter developer since the version 1.0, the very first stable release of Flutter. Is there anyone who maybe remembers that version? Okay, there are some people, nice. And in the Crede Agricole project, I serve as a UI developer. As a Flutter developer, focus heavily on the UI in the overall design squad. And you can also find me on Twitter under Albert_Wolszon. Okay, so in this talk, I'll be talking about design systems and their components, the challenges that we encountered, and how to develop design systems and help your fellow developers in using them. But let's start with the design system. What's a design system? As Wikipedia says, that's a set of interconnected patterns shared within an organization that build its image, be it spoken language and communications, branding, colors, and typography, or the UI elements that are used in different projects for this organization. Some of the companies have made their design systems public, and those are some of the examples. The Google's material design system, the Stack Overflow stacks, the Audi or Atlassian's design systems, the well-known in the mobile world, Apple's human interface guidelines, or the IBM's Carbon. Those are all public. And okay, let's start with some context of the project. You have already heard many stuff about that, but it's really important to understand what was the scale for this project, because it's the scale actually that matters on what challenges do you actually face during the development and during providing so much UI stuff for all the other people. So in this project, there were around 20 Flutter developers at one time, and there was around 30 maybe more Flutter developers in general during the whole project. And more than 200 people, not only developers, were involved in the project. So people like, product owners, testers, translators. And during over the past year, we made around 5,000 merge requests, actually more than that, and 800 of them were authored by the overall design team. And this all yielded more than 16,000 commits, if you were interested in that. All developers were divided into squads. I was in the squad 01, as you could already hear about those. There was also this framework squad that was a little bit more special, just as the squad 01 from the other ones, as the other ones were more business related. And each squad was rather independent in their work, with the exception of those two, obviously. Okay. Our squad made more than 200 UI components, UI widgets, starting from the very small and really small atoms and molecules to very complex organisms and templates. And each of those widgets that you see on the screen and much more had their own corresponding page in a storybook. But let's face this question: how to deliver components enabling squads to create consistent screens quickly? How to do it in a good way without problems, without a big amount of problems? Let's start from the bottom up. Your design team, not the developers team, but the design team shall have already prepared some kind of a style guide at this point, some document in Figma that defines the most basic stuff for a design. So that's stuff like the typography, what fonts are used, what styles are used, the colors, and other design constants such as the box shadows, sizings, grids, stuff like that. And it's also a place where they, and I mean everyone actually from business developers, should think about other things like accessibility features. You know, different people need increased text scale, so it affects the font styles, high contrast settings, maybe the dark mode, as it was already mentioned, and it all is related with those basics. And for developers, because we are developers, we need to somehow provide all of this stuff to the developers. We need to enforce it, enforce the typography that is used among all the widgets, all the screens, and colors. Because if you enforce it, if you don't let developers use anything they like, it just prevents from some errors. I mean, visual errors, that something looks bad or something is not as the designers intended, making it really easy to spot and fix inconsistencies, both in the end-user application and in designs. And this is what we actually did to achieve this. We simply extended some of the default Flutter classes used for visual stuff like the text style or the color. And what we did was create a subclass for this. All of those classes had private constructors, which meant that only the CABP common UI package was able to create instances of this class. Like here, we had this, CA text styles with some of the styles, and the same thing for the colors. We had the color palette that was the common UI package that created the instances of various different colors. And here is like 1/3 of all the colors that were defined, all of the abstract colors. And yeah, when we have a color palette like that, just like the Flutter materials actually color scheme, we have access to the abstract colors. I mean, we have access to the name of a color inside the color scheme, like a brand primary, brand secondary, and other different colors. So we can, assign a concrete color to it, like the actual hex values. But it also enables us to create other color themes, like the dark theme, and in our case, actually 4 color schemes. That's the light and the dark theme for the retail user, and also the same light and dark theme, but for the business context consumer. And even a simple widget as text also was our widget, was our custom-made widget that accommodated those types. Like we only accepted the CA text style and CA color, not just any color. So really, when developers needed to use some text with illegal color, they couldn't do so because of that, because of those compile time errors that they were getting in their IDEs. And actually, what's a nice finding is during the development of this project, we actually saw that the color and the text style are actually two separate things that are really more convenient to have them separately than inside, than having the color inside the style. It's just more convenient. Okay, creating widgets. When you want to have a widget, you have to build its widget tree, and it's usually a widget inside another widget, which is really similar to a concept that atomic design describes. Okay, atomic design. Is there anyone who have heard of atomic design? Good, nice. I see plenty of hands here. Atomic design is a methodology of creating design systems. It describes not only how to create, designs having the end screen in your head, but also having the small components in mind. And in atomic design, you basically split all of your components, all of your UI parts into those 5 categories: the atoms, molecules, organism, templates, and pages. And let's describe what are those on a little bit better example. So here, on the left side, you have an atom. That's actually something that we call a navigation icon. And this is the smallest independent thing that you can have in a design. You can't split it. I mean, technically you can, because that's a background and icon. But in the terms of design, there is no just this circle or just this icon without the background that you have on designs. It's the smallest thing. And when you put it with some title, some border, and probably some box shadow, you have a molecule, something that gives you more information. To the user, it gives more information. It plays some role in the UI. And get some of those cards, put them in a carousel with some fancy physics. At close icon, the title, another box shadow, and you have an organism. And what is organism? Organism is just a piece of UI that's contextual. It has its own context, and if you would have some random screen, and you would put this organism on top of it, the user wouldn't be really confused. The visual independence between what is below this organism and this actual component is clearly visible. There's also template, which is something that sticks everything together, and pages, which are basically, pages, your screens in your application. Another thing, ambiguity. There was very big amount of ambiguities during the development of this project, which were really a pain point. Sometimes you have some different people have different ideas of specification. So, you understand something this way, your designer or product owner or whoever understand it in a different way, or maybe it is because the specification changed in time. Sometimes you have those ad hoc calls when you want to clarify something, talk about how some edge case should be addressed. But you don't make notes. You just remember it. You implement the change, and then this knowledge of the origin of this change is lost. That's just basically wasting time on searching for the specs or fixing stuff when you have to touch it again. And that's why maintaining something like a architecture decision log of sort is important. it actually doesn't have to be something so nice as this name is. We had basically a markdown document that we're laying inside our repository that described all of the majority of the changes that we introduced to some more abstract stuff, so that whenever there was a question why something works like this, why something behaves like this, we always had the answer, and we didn't need to roll back this change. Just don't ask yourself why anymore. Future-proofing what you create at this scale for that many people, for that many man-hours is also crucial. You don't always have the whole specification at your hand. You don't always have the end picture in your head, in the specifications, in designs, in user stories, and you sometimes need to think ahead of what actually the project needs, of how actually some components should work, behave, look like. And the example of such thing could be motion design. Motion design is something that wasn't from the very beginning in our project. When you have a button that just changes the color of a text, color of a background, it's really easy to implement motion design later. But when you have, this, as you could maybe already see on this on the screen on the second row, when you have this big start page that this whole page is basically animated, the motion plays a crucial role here. And as a Flutter developer, you may know how more or less you should develop stuff so it is easy to animate it later, using the stack widgets with positioned different translate widgets. Because later, if you wouldn't accommodate it, you would need to do refactors, and it could be, a pain. Other thing is the dark mode. As I already said, there is a dark mode, actually 2 dark modes in the application, and because of the fact that we use the color schemes, those CA colors abstraction, we were able to really easily add another color palettes to the application, and thanks to this, we have this smooth transition between them. Yeah, that's how it looks. And the last thing, the text scale factor. More people use increased text scale factor on their phones than you would think. And implementing it, supporting it is also a big pain point, because, you have this really beautiful piece of UI, this beautiful start page, and it's all good, but then you have some elderly people that just use their phones daily, okay, but with the increased text scale, and the application is, you just can't use the application because you don't know what you are clicking at, you can't read your transactions. That's also why you need to have some stuff on the back of your head when developing stuff to communicate to designers that they should take it into account. And thanks to this, you can achieve something like this, the support for some things much easier. Okay, the developers are working with user stories. Those user stories have screen designs in them. But how do developers know what components to use from this design? This is a mock-up of a screen from the Figma on some other file, because our Figma was really big. We had different Figma files for different squads. And the navigation for the developer in those Figma pages was actually really easy, really smooth. when a developer had their screen and they wanted to start developing it, they could simply go into Figma, click on any component they wanted. Okay, I have this screen, I want to start developing it. Okay, what's this component that I should use? Okay, I right-click on it, then I have this go to main component option in the context menu. When I click on it, I'm redirected to the design system file in Figma, where I have all of the variants for this input, the one that I clicked on, and also I have the name of the component that's used in Flutter. That's how the component is named in the common UI package, and there's some more examples of that. This is just enum values for some icons. This is another component. This is yet another component, but using a named constructor. Sometimes, as a common UI developer, I had to navigate the other way around. Let's say that I had this CA scaffold panel over widget, and I wanted to see how other people use it. So, okay, I found some widget. I used Control and F to find it. I know that this is some rename loan page, but I have no idea where are loans, what are those, how to find the correct screen in Figma, and we had really big amount of those screens. So this small one-liner really helps in work of a common UI developer, where I can easily see what file it is in, and also what actual screens should I look for, because we had them ordered. Okay, and this is a big chapter right here, because if I were to name one thing that improved my productivity the most during the whole development of this project, was the storybook. Why? Because storybook is a place for me as a common UI developer for the development, where I can focus only on this single component, on all of its variants, states, on all of its edge cases, for other developers to play with those components, to better understand them, so that other developers could see the widget they're about to use without even writing a line of code and doing the hot reload. Also, as our storybook was hosted on the web, on the bank's intranet, it was possible to open, different components in different Chrome tabs, so I could easily switch between those when I was showing my increments on sprint reviews. It was also a place for designers, or actually anyone to check those widgets, if they look good, if they behave correctly with the specification, and other people, maybe some social media people, could also play with those, go to the hosted storybook, use some, let's say, card for credits, put some text in it, and use it in a Facebook post. And this is actually how the storybook looked like. This is an example of the button. And if we could see the video right now. So we had this sidebar where there were many knobs, whatever knobs that we wanted to put there. We could try the different variants for a component, different states, checkboxes for the Boolean parameters. You could put different text inside them. You could also switch between the themes. This is the business theme. We had this the other sidebar with the catalog of all of the widgets. That's an example of a template, which is, it sticks everything together. This was a widget that provided information on laying out all of the other stuff depending on the height of the screen and other inputs. And another example, some other card used in carousels. We could try out the different variants for it, Okay, and that's it. If we could go back. to the presentation. Thank you. And all of those states are quickly accessible at the glance of your hand. You had all of those knobs on the sidebar where you could easily play with them, see if the button looks good in the primary variant, in the secondary variant, in the danger variant, if it looked good with just the emoji or on the dark background. But it also, and that's another video. It was also really helpful with the most complex widgets. What you see here, the scaffold panel over, is a very fancy name for our custom-made scaffold, which accommodated, it was basically the most complex widget inside the whole application, in the whole common UI. If we could loop it, it would be nice. We could play with it. We had different options available on the UI, and that were animated with the scrolling gestures. On different screens, we had search. Some other screens didn't have this search functionality. We could have the filters, just like here, and because of this storybook, we could easily play with those, see if everything works good, if all of the mathematics behind those translations, behind those opacity calculations worked correctly. Okay, nice, thank you. Next thing, the communication. As a developer that creates widgets for 20 other Flutter developers, you need to somehow effectively communicate with all of those people. And we actually had, two types of communication. There was this kind of a real-time communication where something happened and at the point of time, and this is one of the examples is this deprecating things, as Mateusz said. We simply used Microsoft Teams, and I was just posting some important messages there with some context, what I fixed, what I removed, what I deprecated, what was introduced, if it was something that many people awaited, with some screenshots, merge requests, and this important mark which made everyone get annoyed because they got this push notification on their PC. And the other type is a persistent type of communication, because as it was with those architecture decision logs, it was also inside our repository, just basic Markdown documents, where we put the documentation not regarding the specific components, but maybe on a more high level, more high abstraction level, where we could not only describe how something works, but maybe what widget to use, why should we use this one, and stuff like that. But there was also a developer-designer communication, which was a little bit more of a department than in other business squads. And there were a few things here. Formalizing each decision was really crucial. We didn't pay attention to it at the first, which was the pain that I already described, but then it was fixed. So formalizing those decisions is just helpful. Receiving updates on what components has been changed, because okay, some designers created a new widget, new component actually that you need to develop, but how do you know that there is new component? Normally we would use Jira board, but actually due to some legal issues or something like that, designers couldn't have access to those same Jira boards, so we simply used some very simple Kanban board made on Figma. And the other thing, which would be really a blessing if Figma had it, was to have some kind of a version control for components inside Figma. Figma has file version history, but that's not really helpful, because you need to see the changes of components and how the component changes in time, just like you use, Git history. So that would be really handy. And what Fiołek said, boundaries. It's, you know, the package's name was CABP Common UI, not Common Everything. So you need to draw boundaries somewhere. In the Common UI, we were having design primitives, those basics from the style guide. We had the Common UI components, obviously. We had common animations that were coupled with the templates that accommodated them, but we didn't have the localization inside. We had just string parameters in constructors in our widgets, and we relied on those business squads to give us whatever localized string they want us to display. The validation or the repeated business logic, that's not our department. And that's what was about this more abstract stuff, you know, the communications, other things. But what technical obstacles did we actually stumble upon? The very first, you know, problem was choosing the Starbucks solution, and it was actually before I wrote any code. At this point in time, there were only 2 solutions available on the market. That was the Storybook Flutter and the Dashbook. We checked both of those, made some proof of concept, and we decided to go with the Storybook Flutter, which was actually heavily modified to accommodate our needs, like nested components in the sidebar, the different application themes. But after this time, right now, there's actually those 2 new solutions available, the Widget Book and the Flutter Book, which seem really promising on a side note, and I really root for them. And the animations, many animation challenges. This is the most complex widget that we have in the application, but you know, not in Storybook, in this isolated manner where you have only this widget. This is from the actual application where you have all of those other widgets next to it. And you know, coming up with the way on how to develop something like that wasn't easy. It actually took like 3 weeks for the whole development in 2 points in time, because we had to refactor it some time later. Yeah, that was really hard. And actually the thing that, you know, this drawer and this are 2 separate Flutter routes, and this doesn't really help because, you know, Flutter, okay, so this is a funny thing. Flutter actually, when you put a new route in the stack, it actually cancels all gestures. So when the finger was going there, somewhere here, the Flutter said, okay, no more gesture, you can't track the finger anymore. And how we addressed it, we started with I started with drawing all of the states that this widget should have on pieces of paper. Those are those particular states, you know, scrolled, not scrolled, having this below top thing, collapsed, with search, without search, all of this stuff. Then, you know, I ordered it in a manner that, you know, resembled how it will actually look like in the application. And at this point, I could already see some, you know, relations, how something translates into the another state, and so on. And thanks to this, thanks to splitting this problem into, you know, smaller and smaller pieces, it was getting much easier to find the solution for this. And this is actually what Marcin Szałek addressed in his Flutter Europe talk. He's right here. I can recommend this video to you, really. If you're a Flutter developer, if you're any developer, if you're a designer, if you're just a person that lives on the planet Earth, you should watch it. And also scrolling was a very big department that was touched in this application, because those scaffolds made use of those scrolling stuff. Also carousels also had some some role with. They had something to do with scrolling because you know those fancy physics, etc. And touching this sliver protocols, scroll physics, controllers, positions, everything, and the gestures and the parameters that we got from it from their callbacks was really insightful. And this enabled us to create such beautiful translations with the help of the design team, of course, who came up with how it should look. Nice. Thankfully, there were simple obstacles like this. This is the CA button widget in action at the beginning of the project. This is the same button that's shown in the storybook, so on macOS, the desktop platform. And this is the very same widget that's shown in Accordion inside a mobile application on iOS. So that's the iOS platform. And this used the text button, the Flutter's material text button widget underneath. But as you could see, it's not really the same. It differs in height. So a small quiz for you. Why is it? Why does it look different on different platforms? Does anyone maybe have idea? Sorry? No, it's not that. But close. Yes, yes, yes. That's visual density. And yeah, it's not big of a change. So I actually didn't see it at first weeks, actually. Yeah, but I noticed it. And after that, we made changes. The visual density is used in those material widgets, like the button or the input decorators. So it's good to have that in mind. And besides that, there were also other departments of Flutter internals that were touched, or that I and other developers learned about. That's the inputs decorators, the backend behind inputs, inputting the text, how it actually connects with the Swift or Kotlin side of things. For the dropdowns, there were the followers and targets for the composited transform. I didn't even know there was something like that. Now I do. The scaffolds, how they work underneath, and routes, their animations, for this root drawer thing, the overlays. Those were really nice findings. And summing it up, those were a really huge opportunity to dive into some of the Flutter internals. Projects like this, when you have a really awesome design team that designs so complex stuff, which, at the time you don't really think good about them, but after you make it, after it works, after it's beautiful, it's just really, really good to have all of those findings and learnings. And this was my presentation. And this is actually Ditto, our application's mascot. Any questions?
All right, I will just say that we are now going to answer questions from the people present here in person, but we are then going to come back and answer also questions from YouTube, including for the questions which were asked for the previous presentation about the Flutter at Scale presentation. So stick around if you're waiting for those kinds of answers. But now for the first question.
Hi, Albert. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. I have two questions. One is, you mentioned a little bit regarding Figma and how you communicate with design team. So the first question is, was there anything besides like company policy stopping designers to just randomly update the designs, like update the item designs and then like change everything in the app? Like, did you have any process in place to like prevent some random changes? So that's the first question.
Okay, so we actually did have a process. It wasn't some kind of a constraint. So, the designers had to play by the rules. But every change that was made to those components needed to be put in this Kanban board that we made in Figma. It was a really hard rule. Without it, there was no change. Sometimes in the first part of the project, I was receiving some messages from developers that, hey, okay, so I want to make this screen, but this component doesn't actually look like the one in Figma, So we had to enforce it. But after some time, everyone started to respect it, to understand why is it that crucial. So that's how we manage it.
Okay, yeah. So then the second question, with having like such rich design system, it's like the first thing that came to my mind was, do you have any like golden tests or things like that to ensure the design system and that the widgets that you use are not changed by accident? So yeah, like did you have any like specific like probably golden tests or like widget tests to be sure that like you don't break anything?
Very good question. We were thinking about introducing golden tests, so no, we didn't have those. And why? Because golden tests need to have those reference images, those golden somewhere, and having them in a repository was quite a problem because the repository size would be huge and everyone cloning it, it just wouldn't work. And when we were doing some research on the infrastructure for this, we decided that we don't want to try that. And regarding the test, some of those widgets had a widget test, no unit test because there were no business logic, but widget test. But regarding the accidental changes, well, actually, because all of those widgets were separate, weren't connected to each other anyhow, those were the atoms, the molecules, this atomic design. Every time that we made a change, we, of course, tried it in the storybook, sometimes even looked in the app, which isn't important for that thing. And we didn't actually had any problems like that. So I guess this is this separation of concerns, that all components are really independent from each other, that we only focus on a component and not on a piece of this screen,
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Okay.
Hi, great presentation, great work. So have you heard about the WCAG? This is a web content accessibility guidelines.
Did we address it? Do we respect it? At the very beginning, we didn't think about it, which was actually not a great idea. But thankfully, we weren't really far from complying with those. The colors that the designers chose were compliant. The contrasts were okay. We're passing this AA, WCAG AA rules. There were some places where we had to, increase the line height, make something more clear, more visible. But all of this was possible to the audits that we had later in the project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, any more questions? We now have time. Okay, I think that's it for the questions from the in-person audience, but we have more questions from YouTube. So for the first one, oops. How did you solve the Figma export, the image assets? How did you export illustration/icon assets with colors that have day-night mode variants?
Okay, so those navigation icons, as an example that you could see, they were all just one color, and those were vector icons. So once exported, I could easily set the color for this in Flutter. That was, we use the Flutter _ VG package for this, and this exposes the color parameter that just overrides any color that is used inside this vector icon. And for the for other raster images, we just had the light theme and the dark theme counterparts inside the application.
All right, so you had the ready-made assets for that.
Yeah.
Second question is, would you use text button instead of elevated button? You needed what? You needed a button with a background, probably if you needed a button with a background.
Yeah, actually, it doesn't really matter whether it was a text button or elevated button or actually anything, because in the end we rewrote it so that it didn't use the Flutter / material package at all. I just used it because it was the first thing at my hand. I had to override the background color using both the text button or the elevated button, because I needed the color to be what I want. So it didn't really play big of a change.
And the last one is, what's the maximum text scale factor designed for the application? What do you do if the user says the text scale factor to 350%?
Okay, so before implementing the solution for supporting those increased text scales, we checked what text scales the devices allow the user to use. So in iOS, for example, you have this slider of text scales, and then you have a toggle where you could get access to even bigger scales. At the beginning, no, not at the beginning, it is now, we support the scaling to some extent, and when the user has a bigger scale set on their device, it doesn't get bigger, because simply text would be too big to give any actual information to the user, because it wouldn't fit on the screen.
That makes sense, right? Text scale factors are very fun. I had some troubles with them myself, so I know the troubles. Okay, so one big round of applause for Albert again. Thank you very much. Now we are moving for the questions from YouTube for Matti and Fioek, because now we have time since we're after all the presentations are finished. So perhaps let's start with the question, how do you keep the packages in private pub dev repos or Git repos?
Okay, it's working?
Yeah.
You can answer.
Thank you, Mateusz. No, we do have a monorepo here. We keep every package in the same repository so that you don't need to look into different places in the Yeah, and we do like monorepos, and you don't need to then look into different repositories and find what you're looking for. Just you have a single place where you have everything, and that gives you enormous possibilities to discover new code and do it. And we just used monorepo and local references to local packages.
Also, since the app is a one thing, so CABP navigation package cannot exist without the whole CABP app. So why even making more repositories? Yeah. It's the whole one purpose of all the packages to just provide for one Crédit Agricole app. So let's make one monorepo.
Yeah, so basically the purpose of the packages, if I understand correctly, is to just make everything separate, to enforce good coding practices, but not to publish them. And
boundaries,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Makes sense. So was there a separate tester team? What is the test coverage on banking app? I hope it's 100% or 200 at least.
500.
Oh.
No, there is a separate tester team.
Although they are parts of the squads.
They are parts of the squads. They are parts of our Scrum and agile teams. They are provided by the bank, so we are not connected with them in any other way than through the project, and it's even better. I think it's even better. What's the coverage? I'm not sure. Maybe Tomek? No, I don't know. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure. The coverage is enough to release the app. that's known for. So, someone approved it. So yeah, test chapter. You know, it's agile. Yeah, so it's important to just you know, there is test chapter. Test chapter lead said that it's enough. Then it's enough, and I don't know much more. Maybe. Yeah, you want to elaborate? Okay, so let's. You know, I think you know more about the project.
Yes, it's right. The test was completely done, so Mateusz is right. We did the organization that we made two type of testers. One is the, we'd say, manual, which is very committed to testing end-to-end the business process. And for every test, we did several test cases. So the repository of the test cases is covering every functionality. We also have the critical path that we are just checking more frequently. So this is also done both from the perspective of the manual testing and then automation testing. For the automation testing, we still have something to do in order to increase the coverage of the testing. But in terms of the, regardless whether this is automatic or manual testing, this is for sure 100% testing. One thing which I would like to mention during the time, we just found the very specific edge cases during the testing, which we are during the decision of go, no go, where have some issues. Sometimes you feel that on the level of your ambitions, you see that this is a very critical element, but in the end of the day, when you just deploy the application, it seems that nobody touches that element. So it doesn't respond to the real needs of the application. So we are just, I have the feeling internally that we did even more than it's expected and it is perceived by the customers. So this is the approach.
Thanks for that elaboration. We don't know the exact number. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, we can check later.
So did the team use something like server pod, which generates the client depending upon the server adds the request?
You mean the contracts, right?
I guess, yes.
Yeah, so about the contracts, it's all about the backend, and we just, because it's important to have some agreements with other, developers, other companies, and we just agreed with the other company on, with the backend developers, that they will provide generated Dart files with Dart classes that contain requests. Yeah, and there's no server pod, there is no Dart packages, I think. I'm not sure how they do it internally. I'm not sure because we didn't talk about that. They just did it for us. We just agreed on some contracts, like, that's what contracts are for. We just agreed that they will provide Dart classes for every request and response for us from the API. And I think that it's, it's made with some JVM-oriented languages, but they made the whole thing, and it was really a good agreement. Like, they provided everything that we wanted, pretty much. We wanted to have it like implement a equatable interface, because like in the middle of the project, Robert from our team thought that, hey, equatable interface would be really convenient. It's like, it's not, necessary. It's like a convenient thing. And they said like, okay, we can add this annotation. So I guess that they are really prepared for that requests, because they are really flexible, and if we want to add something, they will add it.
Sorry, maybe I will stay on the stage. Okay. Yes, there was one company I mentioned it. This is Savantgarde. Savantgarde also made the proof of concept of the Flutter team, so they will have also the capability of the Flutter. So that's why they were.
And they have a couple of developers on our team also with developing
so that's
Flutter.
why it was easier for us just to let them to create such a contracts deployed and developed in Dart, so it was ready for developers to use for the mobile developers.
Yeah, it's all the matters of the agreement. Just the end effect is that everyone is happy about it.
Right, and actually, I've seen a question before on YouTube. What was the language that was used for the backend?
Java, I guess. Like, I guess 90% of banking in the world.
Right. Now, maybe a question that's perhaps also you, since you were on the team that nobody likes, but also Albert can answer.
Correct.
How and when do you run UI tests? Is there some automated CI/CD pipeline for that?
Yes, so I guess every hour we produce a automated build made with our Jenkins continuous deployment pipeline and continuous integration and then continuous deployment pipeline. And it, in the meantime, it also runs automated UI tests. And if a automated UI test package fails, then the build will fail. So for now, it runs for about an hour. I look at Peter because he, Piotrek is also with our technical squad and he knows it better. But I think that it runs for about an hour, and we are only deploying the build to testers, to manual testers, and the whole tribe on the tests environments only if automatic UI tests are passing. Only in these situations. And yeah, Tomek will elaborate.
No, I would like to please meet Piotr. Piotr is a product owner of Squad 13, the one which I just understood that is not. So if you have any question outside of this meeting, I mean, if we will be on this meeting, so please also meet Piotr. Piotr is ready to respond to some questions, technical questions, referring to this aspect that we have not covered during this question session.
And now I think this is the last question, which will wrap this up. So if all the features were a package, how did you manage external dependencies? Did you create wrappers for external dependencies in the form of a local package?
No, we considered this option to have a single package that references all other external dependencies, but we ended up using, like, every squad is able to select their dependencies. The only requirement of them is that we keep track of a single file in the repository with all the versions that we use, and we use malloc to reconciliate the versions in all the packages to be basically the same. We don't use any separate package. We allow any team to use what they need so that their IDE, their code completion is not bloated with things they don't need, basically.
But every package has to be accepted by us, the technical squad. So, because it's really important for the huge organization like the bank that no one imports some package that is unmaintained or that looks suspicious. That these are just casual, simple things that technical squad should do. Like, look at the package and say, okay, it seems to be maintained, or hey, it's not maintained from the Dart 1.0. So what is all about? Yeah. So yeah. It's like sanity check. It's all about sanity check. But yeah, if you add another package and if technical squad approves the package, then we add it to our versions.yaml file that is used as a single source of truth for all the versions of the all packages used in the project. I hope that answers the question.
For me, it definitely does. I hope to the person asking the question it does too. So thank you very much for these additional answers and also for the presentation.
You can approach us in the networking time.
Exactly. And also, big thank you to all of you for coming, to all of you who are in attendance, to all the speakers, to everybody. Real huge thank you from the depth of our hearts, because without you it wouldn't be possible. We're very glad that we could at last meet in person. Actually, for me, this was the first time I met in person at Flutter Warsaw, because I was only online in the times that we were only remote. And also, we are going to release all of the content, all the talks from this meetup online on the Flutter Warsaw YouTube channel. We're definitely going to tweet about it. I will retweet it. I will post it everywhere, including like on my Twitter and YouTube. So you will definitely know about it. I think it's going to be sometime in the earliest, in about 2 weeks, maybe a bit longer, but we hope to make it as soon as possible. Maybe 1 month it will take. So now we invite all of you who are here in person. Hopefully, sometime teleportation is going to be possible, and also the remote guys are going to be able to teleport themselves to the other room for some pizza and beer. So let's get the party started. And this is also a great occasion to ask any questions that perhaps you are only brave enough to ask if you have a beer or two in yourself. So again, you can scan this code if you want to sign up for the ebook that's going to be released. And again, thank you very much.